Welcome everyone to The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. To my right here is my buddy, Shadow the Night Owl. He is the mascot and the spirit animal of the show here. Hello there, B is in the chat already. Today we're going to go over some of the opening statements from the defense and the assistant DA and the prosecution. The defense attorney's name is Kevin Reddington. The DA for the prosecution is Shanan Buckingham. And we'll see. Because the defense claims that not guilty by reason of insanity. They claim that Lindsay had postpartum psychosis and bipolar disorder. The prosecution claims the opposite. They think, no, she carefully and meticulously planned this. She deliberately told him to leave so she could commit these crimes. So clearly, diametrically opposed views. Miss Kim, welcome. Farm Girl, D, how are you both? Or all, I should say. Welcome to the chat. Make sure you like the video on your way in. Likes are free as always. Smash that like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. Most of you are. As always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships, great ways to support the channel. They help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl soy-free hoodie snacks. Right on there, B. I actually think so far, at least with today's developments, I think the prosecution did a little bit of a misstep going as hard on Patrick as they were. I think that can blow up in their face. Like, there is a case for the prosecution to be making here, and some of it they did do in the opening statement, and we're going to go over some of that, right? But there's things that we haven't heard as much about. Lindsay not taking the medications as prescribed, things like that. Now, that being said, I have other issues with what was going on. We went over this the other day too, right? All the different medicines she was on, the possible diagnoses. It just seemed like the medical professionals kind of let her down. There you go, B. Corey says, hey, Jared and all the black sheep. Hey there, Shadow. Shadows living the dream over here. Today, by the way, we interviewed Christian John today. We actually had a great talk. Not that I was surprised by that, but we always have a great talk. We talked for a couple hours about self-aware narcissists, autism, the narcissist playbook even, estranged parents. We got deep with it. I thought it was awesome. So I'll be uploading that tomorrow for all the people that enjoy Christian John. B says, what did you think about the prosecution tallying up how many pills she took out of each bottle? It's smart of them to do that. They want to demonstrate that she's not taking it as prescribed, right? Like, oh, you're taking these things as needed when you should be taking them as prescribed. But here's the other part. It's hard to know how she was taking it because Patrick wasn't checking her. Patrick didn't know, as the prosecution did prove on the stand. They were asking him, well, were you checking her medicine? And he's like, well, I don't really know. So, but here's the other thing. I think medications made her worse. However, if she was experiencing postpartum psychosis, that is not something that's just caused by meds. No, that's a hormonal change after birth. It impacts 0.2% of mothers. Postpartum depression, completely different story. That impacts 50 to 80% of mothers. Postpartum psychosis is extremely serious. But again, the defense is claiming postpartum psychosis and bipolar. And if she's bipolar as well, the fact that she was not responding to the Zoloft as well as she was, that's very understandable. You should not be giving people with bipolar SSRIs without a mood stabilizer or an antipsychotic. Now, in the professional's defense, if they didn't know that yet, okay, you'll learn it, perhaps. But she was pretty clear that she didn't like the Zoloft, and initially she didn't want to be on it because she was breastfeeding, also understandable. And then over the course of that 4 months, Patrick and her told them, I'm getting worse on these meds, I want to get off of them. And the professionals would tell her, Jennifer Tufts, and that other one who I can't remember, they would tell her, stay the course. And I don't know. I would have liked to have seen a reset there, is what I would have seen. What do you think, Miss Kim? Indeed, Corey, it's a rough one. This is a rough case. B says the husband came across as very likable. I feel sorry for his loss. I think he did too. He is taking his ex-wife's side, which is understandable. Now, some people don't like the husband, Patrick, or ex-husband, because he's already remarried and has a kid. Some people don't like that. Miss Amanda, how are you? Chatty Cathy, welcome. Shadow says hello to you all here too. But this is what we're going to go over first, because this is the most important part, honestly. The legal standard for not guilty by reason of insanity in Massachusetts. Matt Murphy went over this a little bit a few days ago. But this is the big thing. Massachusetts has different standards than almost anywhere in the United States. Other states should probably be guilty. But here's the thing. In terms of this, we shall see, because we're going to read this here to see what it looks like. So, lack of criminal responsibility in Massachusetts. You ready? Let me see if I can pull this up on the screen to make it even bigger. Yeah, there you go. So, lack of criminal responsibility in Massachusetts. If the Commonwealth, which is the state, has proved the elements of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt, the Commonwealth must also prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was criminally responsible at the time of the alleged offense. So the first part of that is already satisfied. They already admitted to the actual killing. But the next part is she criminally responsible? Under the law, a person is not guilty if they lacked criminal responsibility when they committed the offense. This is sometimes referred to as not guilty by reason of insanity. There is no burden on the defendant to prove that they lacked criminal responsibility. That is key. It is entirely up to the prosecution to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt that she has criminal responsibility. The Commonwealth may meet its burden of proving a defendant was criminally responsible for the conduct in either of two ways. The first way is for the Commonwealth to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not suffer from a mental disease or defect at the time of the alleged offense. That's going to be a tough one, honestly. I mean, how do you prove that she wasn't experiencing postpartum psychosis? How do you prove that the meds didn't make that worse? How do you prove that the meds didn't make any underlying bipolar worse? Now, they're trying to cut off some of that by saying she didn't take the medicines as prescribed, but that first part is going to be tough, in my opinion. Next, a mental disease or defect need not fit into a formal medical diagnosis. It is and that's a big part too, it is a legal term, not a medical term. It does not, however, include an abnormality that presents itself only by repeated criminal or otherwise antisocial behavior. It is for you to determine from the evidence whether the defendant had a mental disease or defect at the time of the alleged offense. The second way for the Commonwealth to prove a defendant was criminally responsible for their conduct is for the Commonwealth to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that even if the defendant suffered from a mental disease or defect at the time of the alleged offense, the defendant nonetheless retained the substantial capacity, mind you, not full capacity, substantial capacity, to appreciate the wrongfulness or criminality of their conduct and to conform their conduct to the requirements of the law. To establish that the defendant had the substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness or criminality of their conduct, the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant appreciated, that is, that the defendant knew or understood in some meaningful way that their conduct was either illegal or wrong. Now, what the prosecution will most likely say is, her telling Patrick to leave at the time and looking up how long it would take him to come back, that's them attempting to prove that part. To establish that the defendant had the substantial capacity to conform their conduct to the law's requirement, the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that any mental disease or defect that may have existed at the time of the alleged offense did not deprive the defendant of their ability to behave as the law requires, that is, to obey the law. To summarize, if the Commonwealth proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not have a mental disease or defect at the time of the alleged offense, the Commonwealth has satisfied its burden of proving that the defendant was criminally responsible. Alternatively, the Commonwealth proves beyond a reasonable doubt that even if the defendant did suffer from a mental disease or defect at the time of the alleged offense, the defendant nonetheless retained the substantial capacity, not full capacity, to appreciate the wrongfulness or criminality of their conduct and to conform their conduct to the requirements of the law. The Commonwealth has satisfied its burden of proving the defendant was criminally responsible. Remember, there is no burden on the defendant to prove that they lacked criminal responsibility at the time of the offense. Rather, the burden is on the Commonwealth to prove beyond a reasonable doubt both that the defendant committed the offense and that the defendant was criminally responsible at the time that they committed the offense. If you have a reasonable doubt whether the defendant committed any one of the required elements of the alleged offense, you must find the defendant not guilty. That's going to be a big one for the prosecution to overcome, honestly, in Massachusetts. If you have a reasonable doubt whether the defendant was criminally responsible at the time of the offense, you must find the defendant not guilty by reason of a lack of criminal responsibility. Dum, dum, dum. So, what do you think about that, everybody? B, what did you think about that? Miss Amanda, what did you think about that? Dana, welcome. Julie, welcome. So, personally, what I think is that's a tough task there for the prosecution. I think there's a lot of room for reasonable doubt. Now, does that mean they'll do it? Does that mean they won't find it? No, it doesn't mean they won't find it, but it's just not a slam dunk. Like, I just don't think that's a slam dunk. Let's see. I got to go back to see what our friend B said. Phil Bradley, welcome. This is kind of a landmark case, not the first postpartum murder, but maybe the first one where the offender might get jury sympathy. Not the first B, Andrea Yates. Andrea Yates killed 5 of her children in a bathtub and got not guilty by reason of insanity in Texas, mind you. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm not placing my bets yet. Dana says, welcome Dana. I was thinking that even if she snapped, it seems that she would get her sense back before doing all 3 children, especially if they fought back. And that's going to be a tough one for the defense, right? Like, okay, she went through all 3 of them. She strangled them with the exercise equipment. It's pretty severe. So Andrea Yates was found guilty at first, but then there was a retrial, and then she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, a big part of the reason for the retrial was the prosecution lied about her mimicking a Law and Crime episode, or Law and Order episode crime. Why the prosecution would lie about that, I have no idea. But it cost them a retrial, and then she got not guilty by reason of insanity, which is wild. So they were trying to say she was imitating a Law and Order episode, but she wasn't, because that episode did not exist. B's prediction. Drum roll, please. My prediction, the jury will find her guilty of first-degree murder. It was premeditated. Ooh, that's a big one. I don't know. People on Facebook get mad at me for saying it. We'll see. Hello there, Laura. Welcome. Yates isn't in prison. She's in a mental hospital. Very correct, Miss Kim. Very correct. Juliet Reagan says this case is complex and tragic for so many people. Indeed it is. And Shadow and I do notice that there's certainly a lot more sympathy for Lindsay Clancy than there would be for someone like Nick Reiner. Now, was Nick Reiner experiencing psychosis? I don't know. I tend not to think so. But here's the thing about that. I think it seems like there's more people willing to give Lindsay the benefit of the doubt than there would be with Nick. And I think part of that's the birth part, right? Lindsay gave birth. She could have postpartum psychosis. That's a big thing. So, but it is interesting to see how people take a look at it. I thought it was interesting that Reddington mentioned her still being suicidal. I did see that too, Miss Amanda. I did indeed see that. I hear you, B. Ah, so Laura changed her mind from what to what? Corey says, I can't even put that scene in my head. My mind won't let me go there. Of her killing those sweet babies, horrifying. I mean, it's a nightmare for Patrick, right? And that's why in day 2 today, the prosecution that was going hard on Patrick, showing him pictures of his kids and things, clearly upsetting him, clearly making him sad, and almost trying to make him cry, it seemed. I'm thinking, what are you trying to prove here with this? Like, I think you've already proved that children are human. You've already humanized them. They did that on day 1. You can't risk alienating the jury. And I do think the prosecution, they risked doing that today, I think. They certainly risked doing that. Now here's some more information here that we're going to go over. So a little bit of a can we see this here? Very good. Very good. All right. Ex-husband of Lindsay, Clancy, called to testify as she stands trial for killings of their 3 children. So here's Patrick here. Here's what happened in court. This is yesterday, mind you. We're going to go to Law and Crime Network trials, or Law and Crime trials, and we'll watch some of this. So we're not just going to read it. Here's what happened in court. Prosecutors called Patrick Clancy as their first witness in the triple murder trial of Lindsay Clancy. The Massachusetts mother argues she is not criminally responsible for fatally strangling her 3 children, Cora, 5, Dawson, 3, and 8-month-old Callan. Patrick Clancy, the defendant's ex-husband and the children's father, is a key witness in the case. He is expected to return to the stand Wednesday, when he will likely continue describing the day of his children's deaths. Interesting to note, the day of the deaths, the killings, Lindsay was building a snowman with the kids. So Patrick was thinking, oh, things are going pretty good here. And that's one of the reasons he left her alone with the kids. Now the prosecution's trying to say that is exactly why we think she was sane. She was meticulous, she planned it, she seemed like she was having a great day. Now, is that really accurate though? I would say psychosis to the untrained eye can be tricky. Someone who is not a mental health professional, they might not recognize psychosis when they see it. So can someone be acting normal, but they're in psychosis? I would say it's certainly possible. Now, am I sure of it? That's what's happening in this case? I do not know. I am not sure. She claims she heard those voices. That can kind of be similar to what someone who has schizophrenia would say. I'm kind of surprised that she hasn't almost been given a diagnosis of schizophrenia, honestly. But Clancy has pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of murder and faces life in prison if convicted. Her attorney has argued she was suffering from postpartum psychosis and extreme mental illness when she killed them. The testimony during the trial is expected to focus heavily on testimony from dueling psychiatric and medical experts. Well. Key points. The former husband of Lindsay Clancy, the Massachusetts mother accused of murdering her 3 young children, took the stand Monday as the prosecution's first witness. I already read that. Ex-husband's testimony. Patrick testified his former wife struggled after the birth of their 3rd child, and that she told him in the months before the January 2023 killings she was having thoughts of suicide and harming the kids. Patrick Clancy appeared to get emotional on the stand, taking deep breaths as he described each of his 3 young children, 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan. Between September 2022 and January 2023, Lindsay Clancy was prescribed several medications by at least 3 different providers, her former husband said. Through their questioning of Patrick Clancy, prosecutors noted it appeared his ex-wife had taken only a fraction of the many pills she had been prescribed. So they're trying to demonstrate she wasn't taking these medicines as prescribed, which would also kind of take the providers and clinicians off the hook a little bit. Patrick Clancy testified he was not aware of how much medication his wife had or had not taken. Lindsay Clancy's big spiral started around early December 2022 when she began taking a new medication, her former husband said. Lindsay Clancy told her then husband she was suicidal and had intrusive thoughts about hurting their children, Patrick Clancy testified. He was not concerned for their safety at that time because she didn't show any intention of harming them, he said. Lindsay Clancy spent multiple days in psychiatric hospitals in late December 2022 and early January 2023 because she was still having thoughts of suicide. Patrick Clancy said after she was discharged, she seemed much better and said she was no longer having suicidal thoughts, he said. Hours before the killings, Lindsay Clancy built a snowman and played with her 3 kids, her ex-husband testified. She was having one of her best days, Patrick Clancy said. Before the father of 3 left their home to pick up dinner, he said he kissed one of his children on the head and told his family he would be right back. Ugh. Opening statements. So, bottom line, Plymouth County Assistant District Attorney Shanan Buckingham, the prosecutor, said Lindsay Clancy deliberately and meticulously killed her children. Although she acknowledged Clancy had mental health issues, the prosecutor said she was not in the throes of psychosis when she fatally strangled her children in the basement of their family's Duxbury, Massachusetts home. Now, how are they going to demonstrate that? That's going to be a tough one. Now, if you're the defense, what you're going to want to do is call expert witnesses to the stand that can demonstrate psychosis is difficult to recognize. Now, some people would disagree with that. They would say, I've already heard people say it. No, her husband would have known if she was in psychosis. And I bet you the defense is going to bring witnesses that say, actually, it's a little trickier than you think. Defense attorney Kevin Reddington said Lindsay Clancy was suffering from psychosis when she killed her children and attempted suicide after, which left her partially paralyzed. This is a young woman who, with her husband, tried very hard to get the help she needed, the defense attorney said. And I bet you the prosecution is also going to argue that the fact that she tried to end her own life afterwards, that also demonstrates that she knew what she was doing was wrong. And that demonstrates like she's clear-minded and sane. That's what the prosecution's going to say. And honestly, it's tricky. All right. So, that's the summary. Let's check in here. What do you think so far? Danielle from hell. Shadow and I say hello. Wildlife, welcome. B says, let's see what Wow says is so true. How many people have committed suicide and everyone is surprised because they were fine? Lots of people act normal because they already know what they are going to do. Yes, Wow. That's something we went over the other day. It's a red flag when someone who's been severely depressed all of a sudden seems fine. Often it can be because they've made peace with their decision to end their life. So since they're at peace, they seem happier. And then maybe in this case, there's a version of that Lindsay was experiencing. Psalmbits, welcome. Yes, that is also true, Val. That is also true. Just because the prosecution says something doesn't mean it's true. B says it's possible that she popped a few pills right after he left and had a psychotic break. That would depend, right? That would depend on what exactly she popped. Now, here's the thing. So, according to the toxicology, also, we went over this the other day, but there's 6 things here. At least, if not one more, that they said she was on. And I'll give you my thoughts about it. So Zoloft, Ativan, lorazepam, which is a generic version of Ativan, Ambien, diazepam, which is Valium, and trazodone. So that's 3 benzos there. Ambien and trazodone. Like, that's wild. Ambien can cause some wild side effects, by the way. I've heard some wild things with it, with hallucinations and whatnot. So, but notice what you didn't see. No mood stabilizer, no antipsychotic. And if she was indeed experiencing psychosis and bipolar, and she also has Zoloft as part of her regimen there, I mean, Zoloft and SSRI should not be given to someone that has bipolar unless there's a mood stabilizer or antipsychotic also being taken. So there's some room there for the defense to call that out. But that was what was in her system, I think, at the end there. But again, like Patrick said, he wasn't exactly sure what she was taking. It's one of the reasons why the prosecution was counting those pills that Patrick brought to the station. That very well could be B. B says, I think she fully intended to die herself. For sure. For sure. Now, Laura, I didn't see what you had said before. What did you change your mind from? She only took 6 or 7 pills of a few medications. I'm having a hard time believing the meds caused to be psychotic. No, here's the thing about that, Laura. I think there can be postpartum psychosis that's not triggered by the meds. Well, you can have postpartum psychosis anyway. I think medications might make whatever's already there worse if they're the wrong meds. But I think that's a good point to make, that the meds, I don't think, are what cause postpartum psychosis. I think postpartum psychosis can be present without meds. Laura says, my point is, yes, Chatty Cathy, hit the like button. Shadow says to do so as well. Laura says, my point is that she was not consistent with her prescriptions. That is true. She probably crushed up many meds and put them in her drink prior to jumping. That is possible. That is possible. We'll have to see proof of that, if there's a way for there to be proof of that, but not impossible. We will have to see. Now, and so let's play that one out, Laura. So what could possibly do that? I mean, if you take a handful of benzos, I mean, now you can black out. I mean, she was on Valium, Ativan, generic Ativan, so she has enough to probably black out. And if she's just blacked out from abusing benzos, that's not going to cut it. Like, that's not going to cut it for a not guilty by reason of insanity plea. Like, that's not enough to not be criminally responsible. It's one of the other reasons where even if Nick Reiner was on meth or something, being on meth is also not, even in California where there's different rules, that's not enough. It's not enough to be not guilty by reason of insanity. Yeah, I would doubt that, B, right? I don't think Lindsay is going to testify either. Wow says, the prosecution said that, and it could be misrepresented. Let the experts testify. We will see. It's possible. I mean, I didn't like what the prosecution did to Patrick later on. I don't think that was good. 9 thumbs. We need more thumbs than that, Zombits. So, now let's go to the actual law and crime trials here. Ridiculous. So let's see. So the prosecution went first. There she is. All right.
Of 2023. decided, it chose that you would be the people who could make this decision. So everyone has confidence in you. You should have
That's the judge speaking, of course.
confidence in yourself in regards to sitting on this jury and delivering the just verdict on this. So at this point, I'm going to now see if the Commonwealth is prepared to give their opening statements. Commonwealth? Ms. Buckingham? Sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the prosecutor, Shanan Buckingham, I believe this is her opening statement here.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Cora. She had just turned 5. She was sweet, silly, smart. She loved sparkly dresses and wearing bows in her hair.
It would be very interesting to see the levels of everything in her system at the time of the killings. Because again, it doesn't matter her mental state now. It only matters her mental state at the time of the killings.
She loved princesses and baby dolls. She even tried to convince her preschool teachers at the beginning that her name was Sophia because she loved the Disney character Sophia the First so very much. Dawson. He was 3, a boy's boy. He was a bit rambunctious, but funny, full of energy. He loved trucks, construction trucks, fire trucks, and he spoke with a raspy little voice. Callan. Callan was just 8 months old. Always smiling, with chunky cheeks, a sweet little baby. We are here, ladies and gentlemen, because they are not. They were strangled, deliberately and meticulously, killed by this defendant on January 24th.
Deliberately and meticulously. Key words there by the prosecution.
Of 2023. One by one, she wrapped exercise bands around each one of the kids' necks and pulled until their little bodies were limp and lifeless. First Dawson, then Cora, and finally Callan. Your job, ladies and gentlemen, is not easy in this case. The evidence will be difficult to see, to hear, to process. Testimony of witnesses, family, friends, teachers, people who knew the Clancy family, people who saw them regularly, people who saw them on the day in which this defendant killed them. They're all going to come before you. And it may be heartbreaking to hear what they have to say. You'll see photographs of the crime scene. You'll hear testimony from first responders. They're going to tell you about what they discovered when they came into the Clancy home at 47 Summer Street in Duxbury on January 24th. You'll hear evidence about the defendant during that time period, observations of her physical appearance, her demeanor. You'll hear testimony about what she was reporting to her friends and family and doctors during this time period. The list of witnesses is quite long. Law enforcement, firefighters.
On a side note, I think it's very intentional that they chose a woman prosecutor here. Because imagine if a man is the prosecutor in this case. It's probably not going to look good in the jury's eyes. They're going to be like, how is this man going to prosecute a woman? A man that has never been pregnant is not going to understand, right? So it's just that image, the appearance of it. That's probably why they chose a woman.
Friends, family, teachers, crime scene investigators, forensic scientists, toxicologists, medical examiners, experts. We expect over the next few weeks that you will be able to present to you a clear picture of what was occurring in the Clancy household on January 24th of 2023. We ask that you keep an open mind when you're hearing this evidence, and during the course of the trial, don't forget that you use your common sense and your life experience. Those are things that you bring as jurors to the courtroom every day, and it's what's going to take you into the deliberation room at the end of this trial. So what happened? On January 24th, 2023, it had recently snowed. It was in fact a Tuesday. Tuesdays were days that Cora and Dawson usually went to preschool. They attended the Learning Sprouts preschool in Duxbury, but they didn't attend on Tuesdays, so on this day, they were home. On this particular day, Cora, who had just turned 5, had an appointment at the doctor's, an annual checkup, and so the defendant brought her first thing in the morning to the doctor's. Defendant's husband, Patrick Clancy, was home and he was caring for Callan and Dawson while defendant took Cora to the doctor. Pretty normal. You'll hear and see that Patrick and the defendant exchanged text messages that morning. Patrick sends a photo of Dawson, who had just dressed himself that day and he was jumping for joy. And he sends that text to the defendant while she's at the doctor. And while at the doctor, the defendant sends a text of Cora and her little Johnny and mask to Patrick. When the defendant and Cora returned home that morning, Patrick went downstairs to his basement office to do work, same as he had normally done on any other day since returning from paternity leave. And then the defendant was charged with caring for the kids for the rest of the day. She put Callan down for a nap, bundled up Cora and Dawson, took them outside to the backyard, and played in the snow. They built a snowman. The defendant sent pictures of the snowman and the kids in the snow to Patrick when he's working in the basement, and her mom, who was living in Connecticut, who had just been there that weekend but had gone home.
So I'll say this, Miss Kim. If I'm the prosecution here, I would be emphasizing not taking meds as prescribed. I would be emphasizing she told Patrick to leave and actually looked up how long it would take him to come back. I would emphasize the fact that she tried to end her own life afterwards. I would emphasize the fact that she was looking up how to kill people. I would emphasize the fact she would say, "Can you cure a sociopath?" Those are like some of her Google searches. But those are just some of the things that I would emphasize. I mean, I guess not related to it, but I would think the medical professionals, I would think somewhere, though, there has to be responsibility for them to protect the kids. But that being said, that might not save Lindsay. I'm not exactly sure. I'm like Miss Amanda. I'm still withholding my opinion. I'm withholding judgment. But I am saying if I was the prosecution, those are the things that I would be emphasizing. Now, if you're the defense, you have to find a way to communicate that just because you appear to be okay doesn't mean you're not experiencing psychosis. That's what the defense is going to be emphasizing. And all this other med stuff and not getting inpatient treatment, all that. They're going to emphasize all of that.
The day proceeds as normal. You'll hear Patrick describe it as a good day, actually. In the late afternoon, around 4 p.m., the defendant searched on her phone for kids' Miralax. She searched takeout freebie, and she opened the Apple Maps on her phone and searched the route that it would take to get from their house to the 3B restaurant in Plymouth. She searched how much time and how far it was. Now, this restaurant had been a place that the family had eaten before, but wasn't their normal takeout spot. She also called CVS and asked them about the kids' Pedialax or Miralax. And that's because at the doctor earlier that day, the doctor had recommended a laxative for Cora because she had some stomach issues. She had complained of an upset tummy at school the day before, you'll hear. She had some issues where she didn't like to go to the bathroom at school a little bit.
And that's the other thing I heard, wow, too, right? They're saying Lindsay didn't want to be a mother. Honestly, to me, they're trying to establish a motive, but I don't know. That's a risky one to go. That's a risky lane to go down, I think, because how do you prove it? Well, they would say, well, the actions prove it, right? But do you get the sense that she didn't want to be a mother? No. I've heard other people say she was punishing Patrick. I'm like, well, punishing him for what? An affair? That was going on here? Like, I'm not sure if he did have an affair and if he did, when. So I'm not gonna comment on that because I'm not sure. But I don't know, like what would be the motive here in Lindsay's case? Just like evil? I don't know. I'm not sure what the prosecution is going to say. Well, I know what they did say. They're going to say she doesn't want to be a mother, but I don't think that's a tough one.
Embarrassed, so they suggested the PDLX. So she calls CVS and she confirms that they actually have it at their local CVS in Kingston. Then she sends a text to Patrick and asks if he wants to get takeout, if 3V is okay. She didn't feel like cooking dinner, it was a long day. He says, sure. She calls in the order. When Patrick leaves the house around 5:15 that evening, everything is normal, seems normal. He sees Dawson eating chicken nuggets and green beans on the couch before he walks out the door. Patrick leaves to go to 3V, and he's going to stop at CVS on the way there. That's when the clock starts, ladies and gentlemen. The defendant knows that Patrick has to stop at CVS, go to 3V. She knows that it's about 5 miles from their house to get to the restaurant. She knows approximately how much time she has for him to go there and come back. She then takes the children down into the basement. She separates Dawson from Cora and Callan, and then she proceeds to wrap exercise bands around each child's neck and pull until they are dead. She leaves the bands wrapped around each child's neck and goes back upstairs. In the kitchen, she gets a knife, and then she proceeds to the second floor of the home. In the middle of this, she misses a call from Patrick. He's at CVS. She misses the call. She calls him right back, and they talk for 14 seconds. Nothing that she does or says in that phone call is of concern to Patrick. He proceeds on his task, and she proceeds with hers. She goes to the second floor master bedroom, locks the door, crushes up some pills, and attempts to take her own life. She uses the knife she got in the kitchen to slash her wrists and her neck. She moves the bed away from the wall, away from the window. She opens that window and goes out. She lands on the cold, hard ground. Shortly thereafter, around 6 p.m., Patrick comes home. He's got the takeout bag and the CVS bag with the medicine. He enters into the house through the mudroom door into the kitchen area, places the bags down. It's eerily quiet. He calls to the kids, no answer. He calls to the defendant, no answer. He takes out his phone and dials the number for Lindsay's phone, defendant's phone, no answer. He then goes upstairs and finds the master bedroom door locked. He opens it and enters the room, sees blood and the window open. He then goes to the backyard, and that's where he finds the defendant. She's on the ground outside that window, moaning and mumbling. At 6:11 p.m., he calls 911 for help. First responders arrive to the home almost immediately. He's still on the phone with 911 when the responders arrive, and they go right to the backyard and tend immediately to the defendant. While they're with the defendant, Patrick tells the first responders, "I need to find my kids." He had asked the defendant where the kids were, and she told them they were in the basement. So when he went in the house, that's the first place he went, down into the basement. He's still on the phone with 911 when he finds each child with an exercise band still wrapped around their neck. He screams for help.
It's got to be awful. I mean, nightmare fuel, as the kids would say, right? Like you come home and all 3 of your kids are in that position. Reminds me of, is it Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio? Similar dynamic, except the woman in that drowned them.
And he says, "She killed the kids." Efforts made to resuscitate Cora and Dawson were futile, but first responders from Duxbury and the surrounding communities were persistent, and they kept trying to resuscitate them all the way to the hospital. But when they arrived at the hospital, there was nothing more that medical staff could do for Cora and Dawson. The staff at Beth Israel were able to get a heartbeat on Callan, but he never started breathing on his own. He never regained consciousness. He had no brain activity. Nonetheless, he was transferred to Boston Children's Hospital, where he died 3 days later on January 27th. The defendant was taken to South Shore Hospital and then transported subsequently to Brigham and Women's in Boston. She had multiple traumas, including spinal injuries, as well as superficial injuries to both her wrists and her neck. She is paralyzed. We expect during the course of this trial that you'll hear the defendant made claims that either right after Patrick left the house or after he called her from the CVS, depending on which version of the events she's telling, she heard a voice, a male voice, a voice that she had never heard before, a voice that she never heard again. And that voice told her that it was her last chance, that she had to kill the kids so that she could kill herself. She immediately took action when she heard the voice, with no direction or details from this so-called voice, and she killed the children. Once she killed the children, the voice stopped. When you consider this information in the course of the trial, ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you consider the source, the timing.
Another thing to note, often when you hear those voices, that is a part of a schizophrenia thing. I'm surprised I haven't heard the diagnosis schizophrenia brought up more here. I guess the reason why not is because, well, if it didn't happen before this, then it really just is more associated with the postpartum part. But apparently she did have a little postpartum depression after her second kid as well. Now, not psychosis, but postpartum depression.
The substance of her statements about this voice. You're also going to hear from, or you may hear from, forensic psychologists and psychiatrists who talk about what's called command hallucinations and voices that people hear before they do something. And when you hear that testimony, I ask that you keep in mind the details of what she's saying the voice told her and the details of when this voice spoke to her. Another important thing to remember throughout the course of this trial is that this is not a case about the Lindsay Clancy that sits before you today. This case is about the Lindsay Clancy on January 24th, 2023, at the time of the crimes. This was not a woman in the throes of psychosis on January 24th, 2023. This was a woman who acted intentionally, rationally, and swiftly to accomplish a very specific goal.
So here's the other question. Can you be rational and be experiencing psychosis at the same time? Like, can you do things that look like they are carefully planned and meticulous, but also be experiencing psychosis? To me, that's where the expert witnesses will come in, because I think it might be possible. And honestly, the fact that it might be possible might be enough to get her off.
To kill. You'll see and hear evidence about all the things that she did that day, what she did in the days leading up to this incident, leading to the murders. You'll hear her spending time with her family and friends. You'll hear her appearing to be in good spirits and doing better for all intents and purposes. On that very day, you'll hear she interacted with people at the doctor's office. She came home and took care of the kids. She talked to people on the phone and via text message. The evidence will show you she was not psychotic that day. Throughout the evidence in this trial, you will learn about the defendant being the classic overachiever in school, in her personal life, in her nursing career. She was someone who liked to control every little detail of her life, of her family's life. In contrast to pictures you'll see of the doting mother, the dedicated nurse, you'll also see a side of Lindsay Clancy that's different.
This is going to be a ballsy claim here by the prosecution. This is like their attempt to set up the motive. So pay attention to this.
Somebody extremely controlling, meticulous, and manipulative. The days were laid out with specificity. Strict schedules were expected to be maintained. Food was planned carefully. Sleep was scheduled to the minute. And in the time after Callan was born, her last baby, the family had to adjust. And by all sources that I expect you're going to hear at that trial, that summer was great. But after Patrick had finished his paternity leave and was back to work full time, when she no longer had a nanny to watch the baby, do laundry, tidy up the house, follow her schedule, when she was responsible for it all, it was hard. It was hard for her to maintain that control. It was hard for her to bond with her kids. And in efforts to maintain...
So they're saying in order to maintain control, this is one of the things she did. This is what she did to maintain control.
Maintain control. She withheld information from her husband, from her doctors. She reported serious symptoms that were inconsistent with her daily activities, you'll hear. And ultimately, on January 24th, 2023, the defendant made a calculated decision. This was a woman who no longer liked the life she thought she wanted. It was getting harder and harder to control. And when she saw the opportunity to escape, she made the selfish choice.
This is wild, though, to me. I don't think this was necessary. If you're the prosecution, why do you need to invent this motive here? Because as far as I can see in the case, I did not get this impression at all, that this was like, oh, for control, to get her old life back. That's just not what I saw. It might be something sinister, but for this reason, I don't buy it for this reason.
To take it, and to take Cora, Dawson, and Callan first before attempting to take her own life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a public debate about women's mental health and how the medical system treats women. This case is about this defendant, Lindsay Clancy. There is no dispute that she was dealing with mental health issues during this time period prior to the murders. There'll be medical records, medical doctors, mental health professionals that will talk about treatment, prescriptions, hospital visits. All that's going to be before you. The evidence will show that this defendant had a means and access to mental health that most people don't. And she chose to deal with her mental health issues in the worst way. She chose to manipulate her providers, seek out the quick and easy fix when she was feeling depressed and anxious.
So they're also going down the doctor shopping angle and not taking the meds as prescribed angle. I don't know about that one either. This is another risky one to me. If you're the prosecution, mind you. Shadow and I have our prosecution hat on right now.
And when she didn't get what she expected, she chose an alternate route. She sought a different doctor. She changed medications after days. She disengaged from treatment when she didn't like the plan. After only 4 months in treatment, she made a choice, a deliberate and intentional decision that she did not want to try anymore. And because no one could take care of her kids the way she wanted them to, she had to take them with her. Despite all the precision that she exhibited that day, you'll hear, the timing of it all, the swiftness of the killings, overcoming the interruption of Patrick's phone call, what she did not anticipate was that she would not be able to complete the act by killing herself. Ladies and gentlemen, people with mental illness commit crimes every day and are responsible for them. The fact that someone may suffer or have a mental illness, a mental disease or defect, is not the end of the inquiry when it comes to guilt or innocence. It is whether a person can appreciate the wrongfulness or criminality of the conduct and conform their conduct to the law. Do they know what they were doing, and can they control their actions? The evidence in this case will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this...
They should have stopped. She should have stopped at she called or she kicked Patrick out. She looked up how long it would take him to come back. Leave it at that. I think if you leave it at that, that's more powerful than adding these motives.
This defendant coldly and efficiently executed first Dawson, then Cora, and finally Callan. One by one, she strangled the life out of each one of them. She did so with no hesitation, with deliberate premeditation, and extreme atrocity and cruelty. She is criminally responsible for the murders because the evidence will prove to you that she knew exactly what she was doing. She drew her husband out of the house, their father, so that she had the opportunity and the time to carry out these murders.
Now, leave it at that. That would have been powerful. Add the motive, not so much.
She maintained the ability to control her conduct, conform her conduct, when she attempted to kill herself to escape the consequences.
That part too. That would have been helpful too.
At the conclusion of this case, we're going to come back and we're going to ask that you return guilty of the murders of Cora Clancy, Dawson Clancy, and Callan Clancy because the defendant committed those crimes.
All right, thank you, counsel.
All right, that's the end of the prosecutor's opening statement, but now I want to read you what psychosis looks like. I hear very little about what psychosis looks like, so we're going to read a little bit about what psychosis looks like. Sounds good, Bethany. We can do that then. Some common signs of psychosis. Delusions. Strongly held beliefs that aren't based in reality, such as believing they're being watched, that they have special powers, or that random events contain secret messages meant just for them. Doesn't seem like that part. Hallucinations. This might be. Sensing things that aren't there. Hearing voices is the most common, but people may also see, smell, feel, or taste things that others don't. So if you're the defense, you emphasize that. Disorganized thinking or speech. They may jump between unrelated topics, speak in ways that are difficult to follow, or have trouble organizing their thoughts. Changes in behavior. They might become unusually withdrawn, agitated, suspicious, fearful, or behave in ways that seem out of character. Some of that, with those mental health symptoms, right? Reduced insight. They often don't recognize that their experiences are symptoms because the experiences feel completely real to them. Now you don't see that. Because she seems to still be rational enough to know, well, I want to end my own life. I want to harm my kids. And she's able to tell on herself about that. That seems like a rational thing, right? That's another thing I think the prosecution probably should have emphasized. She knew that, so we're sane enough to do that. Psychosis can look very different from person to person. Some people appear obviously distressed or confused, while others can seem relatively calm and function in many areas despite experiencing hallucinations or delusions. So like I said, could be, right? Because some of them seem to be able to function despite hearing auditory hallucinations. Early warning signs. Sometimes there are changes before full psychosis develops, such as increasing social withdrawal, declining performance at work or school, trouble concentrating, sleeping much more or much less than usual. She did have insomnia. Feeling unusually suspicious of others, strong emotional changes, or conversely, a noticeable lack of emotion, neglecting personal hygiene. I'd be curious how her personal hygiene was. But besides the sleeping part, I don't know what else. Social withdrawal, maybe. She wasn't at work or school, so There's no declining performance in that. Declining performance in parenting, no doubt. These signs don't necessarily mean someone is developing psychosis. They can occur with many other mental health conditions as well. When to seek help? If someone is seeing or hearing things that others don't, holding beliefs that are clearly disconnected from reality, becoming very confused or unable to function, or their symptoms are causing distress or putting them or others at risk. That last one for sure, right? Symptoms are causing distress or putting them or others at risk. They should be evaluated by a healthcare professional as soon as possible. Early treatment is associated with better outcomes. Well, not in this case. If the person is talking about suicide, threatening violence, is unable to care for themselves, or is so impaired that they're in immediate danger, contact your local emergency services or take them to the nearest emergency department right away. If you're asking because you're worried about yourself, blah, blah, blah. I'm not. So that's that. That's what psychosis is.
Mr. Reddington, do you wish to give an opening?
I do.
Do you wish to give an opening? What a way to frame it, right? Imagine the defense says, no, I'm waiving my right to the opening, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I might use the easel, may it be placed in front of the TV screen so that the jurors are able to? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Please. You know, normally, we thank jurors for time away from your life, your jobs, your family, coming to court, listening to a trial. Certainly is a service that's provided by you as citizens, but in this case, God bless you. You people are going to have to listen to some of the most horrific things. Look.
And honestly, I think this guy is a better attorney than the prosecutor from what I've seen so far. He's also got the classic Massachusetts accent, right, Miss Amanda? My dad is in Massachusetts now, by the way.
At some of the most horrific things. And jurors, it's a beautiful system. You pass between, as you heard Don Clerk say, you probably don't remember it, but it's old language, goes back to Old England. It says that you as jurors pass between the government, them. And she places herself on her country, which country you are. You owe allegiance to nothing but your oath, your consideration, and your time. Your common sense. You bring your life experience to this trial. You render a verdict. And as jurors, experiences, take the job very, very, very seriously. You people will never forget this case. And thank you for that service. The government says that this is a situation, it's not a referendum on women's having babies and having postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, but it sure as hell is. Because you're going to hear, consistent with what His Honor told you in the instructions, consistent with the obligation that the government has when they brought this charge. Tim Cruz, the DA, right in the front row, brought this charge. He knew, as did his office, the facts of this case. And he knew when he brought this charge that it was going to kill the soul of this young woman. And they would bring their evidence in front of a jury that she knows that she killed these children. We'll sit here, listen to their evidence, but I suggest to you that the issue for consideration is what was going on in that woman's mind. You're going to hear evidence that, as the government said, Lindsay was a kind of a parent pleaser. She was a person that in school had a lot of friends, still has friends. You'll hear evidence to this day from the 6th grade. High school, college, nursing school. You're going to hear evidence that Lindsay, in the course of being in high school, she was a high achiever of gymnastics. Stopped doing gymnastics because she hurt herself and didn't like to do the backflips and stopped doing gymnastics, but she was very athletic. You're going to hear evidence that right after she had the birth, the last child, within 4 or 5 days, she ran a 5K. She was very, very, very physically fit. Her life was such that she watched what she ate, watched what she did in her life as far as activities, and was one heck of a mother. She loved her children. All the things that the DA said to you about those little kids and their life and what they like, she knows 1,000 times more than what they know. And in that capacity, as a mother, daily you'll see evidence that she would decorate rooms, that she and Patrick did have that achievement of a wonderful life. They had it all. They met in Boston. She was a young nurse out of school. He was working in his industry. They ended up falling in love. They got married, bought a nice house. And you know, people will say, oh, they're living in this mansion. No, they're living in a very, very humble house in Duxbury that they had to struggle to pay for. That house you will see, not from the view, because it's not enough that we have photographs. On top of the photographs, we have to have a video. And on top of the photographs and the video, we have to have an auto-computerized animated display. And on top of the photographs, the video, the animated display, we have to get on a bus and go take a ride and look at the house where some guy and his wife are now living, that it doesn't look at all like what it looked like when Lindsay and Patrick were living there with their 3 kids. But there are videos that show what that home looked like that day, prior to that. You'll see in every room, there are things hanging on the walls, alphabets, colors, numbers, pictures of different cartoon characters, and I'm too old to even remember what they are. Movies, all sorts of toys, erector sets, trucks, all over the living room. There was no dining room. It was a large thing for the baby to be in, and then surrounded by toys. Every single room had toys in it. These children were loved and nurtured and cared for by her. She didn't want to get rid of her kids because of her selfish life, as the government indicates. She loved those children right up to the time of their death. You're going to see that there's photographs in this case.
A smart part of the defense here, right? Trying to counteract what the prosecution was saying. The state's like, no, she didn't like her life. She wanted to go back to her pre-kids life. I mean, I would like to see the evidence of it. I haven't seen it so far. I think the prosecution invented that.
You will be able to evaluate that show that. Some of them might even be in the videos that the state police took. This case is a massive production by the district attorney's office. You have the district attorneys, the assistant district attorneys, the assistants to the assistant district attorneys. You have the state police crime laboratory. You have the detectives. You have the state police, the armed men that will go out and interview witnesses and will investigate this case. You have the victim witness advocate, very nice lady, by the way, that deals with witnesses and people in a case such as this. It's a massive operation, and that's great. We should have that. But when you're considering the evidence, You consider the fact that you have two young people that were living this life, that were working, and Patrick, not because of COVID, not because of he just didn't want to work in an office anymore. He worked out of his basement. He worked in an office in the basement. He was there because of what Lindsay was going through. He was there. He lived it. And he will testify to it. He doesn't have to testify, quite frankly, and identify clothing and be distraught and placed in a position of horror in this courtroom. But he will testify to what they went through as a husband and a wife, the wife being pregnant. They had 3 kids. After the second child, she had postpartum. You're going to hear evidence that that's one of the issues that is important because that could lead to bipolar. One of the things that you don't do, which is taboo, is if you have somebody that's bipolar, you don't put them on an antidepressant. You don't put them...
This is what I was saying before. If someone's bipolar, you don't put them on an antidepressant like Zoloft without a mood stabilizer or antipsychotic.
On Zoloft, you don't put them on what's called an SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. It messes with your brain. You don't do that, but it was done in this case. The reason that Lindsay went to the doctors was in September 2022. July and August of 2022, they were very happy. Lovely little family. September, things went sideways. And she looked for, and you heard the government saying, and remember what they say in their opening, and remember that when they prepare a case, and remember how they can point at different aspects of the case that show guilt, that show that somebody's conniving. In this case, how many times we heard she faked the suicide. Faked the suicide. Little cuts, dinky little cuts, scratches you'll hear stated in the opening statement or time of the arraignment. That she asked for a lawyer. That's rich. You're going to hear evidence that she was in her bedroom after the horrific act in the basement. And that she was up in the bedroom, that she stood in front of a full-length mirror, that she took the knife that was in the kitchen that she had taken. And when she took the knife, she cut her throat in front of the mirror.
So there's going to be some pictures. I don't know if we see them, but you might see them a little bit. So be careful. Warning, this is your warning, folks. You might see some bad pictures here.
This is no fake suicide. This is her when she was brought to the hospital. When she was in the hospital. That's what her appearance was at the South Shore Hospital. When she's at the South Shore Hospital, she had wonderful care and treatment that was able, against her will, to save her life. Fake suicide, little scratches, dinky little scratches. This is a photograph that was taken at the South Shore Hospital of her neck. Photograph taken of her wrist, showing the split in the skin. Photograph showing you'll see evidence of this, the bedroom floor next to the bed with the blood. The knife next to the cup. Sadly, a gift saying "because kids." You see the white residue inside the cup, that's where the pills were crushed up with leftover lemonade from the night before when she consumed that. That's the knife. This here you'll see is sleep aids. See this here, deep sleep pillow spray. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't sleep for months. More photographs of the injuries to her neck. because of the fake suicide speculation by the police.
So he's calling out the fact that the prosecution has called this a fake suicide, dinky little cuts. And he's like, no, look at these pictures. This demonstrates pretty clearly it wasn't just some dinky little cuts and it wasn't some sort of fake suicide attempt.
You'll see the evidence that she hung on the window
And after all, she is paralyzed from the waist down, too.
ledge. And like Spider-Man, I guess, slid down the wall of the house. You're going to hear evidence that she flung and threw herself out the window, striking her head on the ground, full ground, causing what's known as a Jefferson fracture of her neck. She shattered, exploded her thoracic spine, shattered her cervical spine, the first disc, broke every rib. And the Jefferson fracture, you'll hear evidence, is not consistent with a fake suicide by any means. Jefferson fracture is consistent with Superman when he got thrown off the horse. It's consistent with people that have the tragedy where they dive into a swimming pool, as a result of which they get that fracture in their neck and they're paralyzed. She's paralyzed. She's not going to get up miraculously and walk out of this courtroom. She's paralyzed and will be paralyzed for the rest of her life. She's living her own hell. She knows what happened with those kids. And she wanted to die. When she was in the hospital, you're going to see evidence. At Brigham and Women's Hospital, when they transferred her from South Shore Hospital, air flight, into Brigham and Women's Hospital, and she was then given the emergency room, the emergency treatment at the Brigham and Women's Hospital. You couldn't move in that room. There was so much equipment, so many wires, so many breathing tubes, so many machines, humming, banging, clicking, and she's spread out like she's crucified on the bed while she's being treated in that room, surrounded by armed police officers. Out in the hallway, guarding the hallway against what anyone could guess. Guarding the hallway, guarding the room, guarding the bed, standing there. She's handcuffed to the bed. She goes to South Shore Hospital. Government speculates that, again, you see how the government is able to create what they want for facts, that she is so cold and calculating that she said that she heard voices after I brought a psychologist, Dr. Zeisel, into that room to see her. I had to move heaven and earth. You'll hear evidence that they wouldn't even let her have visitors. She couldn't even see her family for over a week. The cops wouldn't let anybody near her. That room was an armed camp. I had to move heaven and earth and practically get a court order to be able to get in there and see her while she's laying in the bed. And they suggest, and will suggest, that she said, I heard voices, I heard command hallucinations telling me to kill the kids and then kill myself, after she talked to Paul Zeisel as if he was telling her what to say because I'm the lawyer and I brought him into that hospital. You're going to hear evidence that Paul Zeisel is one of the most respected psychologists. You're going to hear evidence that he was embedded with the military in Afghanistan for years. You're going to hear evidence that he works for the government when there's a shooting involving the FBI, the CIA, or any of those alphabet soup cops. He's involved out interviewing these people for post-traumatic stress. I knew that he was the man to talk to this young woman in the hospital. When I finally was able to get into that room, into that hospital, he was with me. He did not tell her command voices. He, as a human being, gave her a cell phone so she could call Patrick. But you know what? You're going to hear evidence from a woman who works at Brigham and Women's Hospital, who saw Lindsay as soon as she came out of her coma. She is a woman that works with the religious services in that hospital. And the first thing that Lindsay wanted to know is, where's my family? And then she told her about what happened and told her about the command voices. And this is...
Tim's got a super chat here for Shadow. Thank you very much for this, Tim. Shadow. See that? Soy-free hootie snacks for Shadow. Shadow and I really appreciate that. Likes are also free, so spank that like button and leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Subscribing is free too. And as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships, great ways to support the channel. We're watching the opening statements here of the Lindsay Clancy trial. She killed her 3 children. There's no question that she did it. It is just a matter of whether she gets not guilty by reason of insanity or she actually gets sentenced to prison. That's the only question. So thank you very much, Tim.
Well before she ever met me or Paul Zeisel. So you have to keep focused on the evidence because it's so easy to manipulate. There's no fake suicide. And there was no plan to fake her sickness. This is a young woman that, with her husband, tried very hard to get the help she needed. She went and saw a doctor by the name of, oh, by the way, remember in the opening, the government says she shopped around for doctors, I guess, that she wanted to get doctors to, I don't know, give her drugs or something. You can hear evidence that she went online and she looked for someone that was into neonatal or post-baby delivery because she knew.
I do think the prosecution is overplaying their hand. So for the people that think she's guilty, I like Dana and others, I'd be curious what you all think. Do you think the prosecution's overplaying their hand by creating a motive and saying she's doctor shopping? I think so. Thank you very much for this A-Song, 400 Joules, Eagle. Cousin to Shadow is an eagle. Also, Shadow and I want to send you some good vibes because A-Song said one of her best friends passed away today. So Shadow, myself, and the rest of the flock of black sheep sending love and good vibes A-Song's way. And thank you very much for your support.
That she was in trouble. She couldn't sleep. She had insomnia. It wasn't just, when you get up in the middle of the night because your phone's on. She couldn't sleep. She could only get 2 hours a night, 3 hours a night if she's lucky, as time went on. In September, she went to see Dr. Tufts. Jennifer Tufts is the name of the doctor. Jennifer Tufts then gave her a prescription for Zoloft, which is an antidepressant. It's one of those SSRIs. She didn't take the Zoloft for a couple of weeks because she was breastfeeding. She was afraid to have the baby have anything to do with drugs, but ultimately couldn't do it any longer, took the Zoloft.
What do we have here? Shadow says, thank you very much, Bethany. Bethany says, song sending you positive vibes. Amen to that, Bethany. It always makes me happy to see the community supporting one another. A warm Shadow and I's heart. So thank you very much for that, Bethany. And hopefully you got those good vibes there, A-Song. Also, Dana says she's not sure if she's doctor shopping or not. Hello there, Janine. Welcome. Shadow and I say hello.
Was spun out of control. Well, because you didn't hear evidence because she was bipolar. You don't give a bipolar person Zoloft, but she got it. You're going to see what the effect was that it had on her as that week went on, as that month drove on, and she couldn't sleep, and she was unable to emote, had no emotions, had no feelings, was unable to really react to anything, but had to take care of the kids. And as the government says, well, she was able to talk to people. She was able to talk to neighbors. Sure, you're going to hear because they don't call them. We're going to call them. People that knew Lindsay as a mother. People that knew Lindsay. Teachers of those kids will indicate what kind of a mother she was. As will neighbors. As will friends. As will people that saw her during that period of time. You're going to hear evidence from Patrick as to the effect that this sickness had on her. She was looking into it. You're going to see her Google searches. You're going to see her Google searches go on and on and on about how to take care of postpartum. What type of drugs? Can you become addicted to benzodiazepines? What about, is it possible to have a treatment, a ketamine treatment, What do I do as far as insomnia? What do I do about my thoughts to kill myself? Ways to kill. How do you kill? What do you do to kill? Government lashes onto that. Oh my God, she's looking up ways to kill. Let's make that a basis of our prosecution on this case. This is not a righteous prosecution. They're looking for every single
Not a righteous prosecution. Boom.
piece of evidence that they can to show some ridiculous concept that she wanted to kill her beautiful kids because she didn't want to be a mother anymore. This is a woman that was a nurse. She worked for one of the best hospitals in the country. She was in a labor delivery. You're going to hear from labor and delivery nurses that will tell you how dedicated she was. Cora was named after the very, very first baby that she delivered as a nurse in the hospital. That's where the name Cora came from. Cora was named after her first delivery. This is a woman who did nothing in her life but dedicate her life to helping people and be a good person and a good nurse and a great mother. And as time went on, looking like anyone else would, please help me. That's what it's all about. Give me help. And people can say, well, the government will say, God, she was able to talk to people. She wasn't drooling. She wasn't putting tin foil inside of a hat when she was going to the schools. No, she was able to talk to people. We actually have, we meaning the government, we have video of her and Patrick and the kids at the Museum of Science. And they were actually having a good time. We also have video that shows them down at the Cape Cod, down the Cape, with the kids. And they're in bathing suits. I guess she was fine. She put on a pretty good face. So what does she do? She goes to see, September 12th of 22, she looked for a psychiatrist. That's when she hooks up, if you will, with Dr. Jennifer Tufts, early October of 22, initial appointment. October 20th of 22.
This is what I always wanted, the timeline. September 20th, 2022. We went over some of this in Lawyer Lee the other day. But she went initially to Dr. Tufts. Tufts is the one that gave her the Zoloft. And, you know, the second that she had negative effects on Zoloft, that should have been the time to start tapering her off of that.
Reports the adverse reaction that she was having to the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor Zoloft. November 16th, she goes to the South Shore Hospital emergency room because she was so depressed and so maxed out from lack of sleep and so unable to emote. She couldn't laugh, she couldn't cry, she couldn't have any feeling. She was a robot. She went to South Shore Hospital. She was referred and engaged with South Shore Perinatal Behavioral Health. This was Patrick's mother. This is Patrick's mother, Mrs. Clancy, who's a nurse, well-respected nurse, wonderful woman. She works at the South Shore Hospital, labor and delivery as well. She knows Lindsay. And she told Lindsay, you gotta go to this outfit here, which was the South Shore Perinatal Behavioral Health. She didn't look them up because she wanted to get drugs. She was referred by her mother-in-law, who's a nurse. She went to...
Yeah, I never got the sense that she was drug-seeking. Now, you might not realize it by what the doctors were prescribing her, considering she was prescribed 3 benzos, but I never got the sense that she was exclusively seeking them. It seems like to me it was more like the professional's decision to give them to her. That is different than drug-seeking / doctor shopping.
See these people, November 21st of 22. When she was engaged at the South Shore Perinatal Behavioral Health, she's going on one drug to the next to the next. The drugs that she was prescribed, you see here, and you'll hear evidence that, first off, Jennifer Tufts, September 15th, 22, sertraline, that's the Zoloft. Then lorazepam, October 21st, Jennifer Tufts. Then hydroxyzine, Jennifer Tufts. Lorapazan, Jennifer Tufts. Buspirone, Jennifer Tufts. Lorazepam, increase, Jennifer Tufts. Buspirone, increase from 1 milligram to 5 milligrams, Jennifer Tufts. Trazodone from another individual. Fluoxetine, 10 milligrams from another person named Julie Paul. Julie Paul worked at the South Shore Hospital when she went there to go to try to...
Seems like Dr. Jennifer Tufts couldn't write those scripts fast enough.
Get some help from South Shore Perinatal Behavioral Health. More medications, spiraling, continuing on, down. Pat lived this, and he will testify to what they went through. At this point, at the end of November, around Thanksgiving, she's reporting disassociation and confusion. They put her on Remeron. This is around Thanksgiving. Things were so bad at this point that her mother and father came up from Connecticut and lived with them to take care of the kids, to help, because she was walking around absolutely a zombie. She would rock on the sofa, crying hysterically, banging her head into the pillow of the sofa. Patrick will tell you what he observed with her. She dealt with her parents. Her parents were there to try to help her. Is this someone that's faking because she doesn't want to be a mother anymore? The parents were there. Mother and father, wonderful people. Mother's retired. Dad took pictures of high school kids for yearbooks. They did what they could. Coming into December, after Thanksgiving, and they went, by the way, during the holidays, down to Connecticut at one point to visit with the family. But December 4th, she calls a suicide hotline seeking help. December 5th, she's evaluated by what's known as the Aspire Crisis Team. You'll hear evidence about that. December 6th, the next day, they have an appointment with Nurse Gelada. Now,
But again, as we went over the other day, it just seems like their first line was meds, meds, meds. But it's like, why wasn't like counseling? Was counseling even offered? I mean, it just doesn't seem like it. It just seems like they went straight to the med route.
Nurse Gelada comes into this action because, again, not looking for more doctors. Paul retired or left or went to another job. So all of a sudden, Nurse Paul, who was treating her and prescribing meds, leaves. Here's Nurse Gelada. She's now going to be your person you deal with. That's all. She wasn't looking for some other doctors to get additional medication. She now is dealing with Gelada. They have an appointment with Nurse Gelada. And Pat goes with her because he was so upset and says to Gelada, you'll hear evidence, do you think possibly that she's over-medicated? Do you think somebody screwed up? And she says, it's possible. And then she puts her on more medication. She puts
So Gelada, that was the other one. Between Gelada and Tufts, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of how they handled this.
her on, okay, December of 2022, you're going to see that Nurse Gelada, who is now on this chart, is in blue. Nurse Gelada puts her on quietapine, 25 milligrams, November 30th. December 6th, diazepam, 5. December 7th, diazepam. December 7th, quietapine. December 9th, diazepam, 5. December 13th, diazepam. And then she goes back to Jennifer Tufts because they just couldn't handle dealing with Rebecca Gelada because she wanted to wean off the drugs. Gelada told her to stay the course. She ends up going through the December 19th, 21st, 20th.
Now the Seroquel, if you're having like really intrusive thoughts, that might not be the worst treatment, right? Seroquel. But if you listen to Lindsay, she said the Seroquel was seeming to make her worse.
Second, dealing with quietapine,
Quetiapine's Seroquel.
300 milligrams of quietapine. Now, what happens is they then suggest that what she has to do is go to Mass General Hospital. She goes to Mass General Hospital. At Mass General, they say, well, you can do like a day program, or you can go to this fantastic program down in Rhode Island called Women and Infants Program. So she goes to Women and Infants Program. She goes down for a day. She sits there in a group with other mothers and they talk. And they look at her medication and they say, you're going to see it in the medical records. We can't really help you as postpartum, and that's what they specialize in, because you've got medications that you're going to have to clear because the medications can be affecting you. She was there for a day, one day. They never said anything. You're not suffering from postpartum. Postpartum, every one of these doctors and nurses knew that she was suffering from postpartum. And now it's turning into psychosis. Now as she goes through the period of time, in January 5, Aliyah Goodhart from McLean Hospital puts on trazodone, 50 milligrams.
I mean, considering all the troubles here, I'm not for the fact that they never tried to put her in inpatient. Now, what probably happened was the insurance red tape got in the way. They wouldn't pay for her, but it seems like at some of this point, there should have been some inpatient, maybe even a detox from some of these meds, right? Especially considering some of them were benzos. Benzos are something you need to detox from, by the way. If it's very difficult to taper off of benzos.
Lorazepam, 1 milligram, leaving the hospital. She goes to that hospital on New Year's Eve. She and Patrick decide this is it. The two of them get in their car. Family takes care of the kids. She goes to the hospital. Now it's locked wards. She goes into the hospital. She's there for 4 days. During that period of time that she's there, she's in group. She doesn't see a doctor but once. There's no discussion of medications till the very end. You'll see the medical records. You can look at the medical records. You'll see that her daughter's birthday was coming up and she wanted to leave rather than the 5th on the 4th. This is not a discharge against medical advice. They cleared her. They said, yeah, fine, you're okay, good luck, go home. She went home and she went to the birthday party. The government will have witnesses apparently to show that she was able to socialize, like, hi, how are you, at the trampoline where they had the birthday party for Cora. She's still living her nightmare. During this period of time, January 9th, back to Jennifer Tufts, puts her on diazepam. Jennifer Tufts kicks up the trazodone to 150 milligrams. January 13th, you've got Rebecca Gelada, puts her on diazepam. And by the way, when she was down at Rhode Island in the nurse and babies hospital, not a hospital, it was like a service, the people that were treating her for that one day reached out to Gelada to find out what's up with the medication, and Gelada never called them back. You're going to hear evidence, and it's in the medical records that...
That's kind of garbage there, too. Gelada never called them back after these questions. Like, I mean, I get they're busy. And now it looks even worse, right, considering what happened. But why not call them back?
When she and Patrick called Gelada to say, I got to wean off this. She didn't want more drugs. She wanted off the drugs. Gelada says, stay the course. She's going on vacation. I'll see you in a week. Comes back in a week. You're going to see that now Jennifer Tufts puts her on diazepam 2 milligrams on January 16th. Amitriptyline 10 milligrams, January 16th. Diazepam and diazepam between Tufts and Gelada. And the last script is diazepam 2 milligrams, January 23rd. During that period of time, you can see that on December 20th and 22nd, she was evaluated at the Women's and Infants Partial Hospitalization Program in Rhode Island. December 30th, she returned to Mass General Hospital Emergency Room. December 31st, that's after Mass General told her to go to the hospital, you can go to McLean. New Year's Eve, December 20th of 22, they were admitted to McLean Hospital for psychiatric treatment. January 6th of 23 was post-discharge follow-up appointment with Dr. Tufts. January 10, 16, and 23, appointment Dr. Tufts, Dr. Tufts, Dr. Tufts. The day before the killings, Dr. Tufts. These are the medications that she was on, that she had filled, that she took, that she didn't take, and apparently, according to the opening statement by the government, was manipulating the doctors, not telling the doctors. She told them.
I never got the sense that she was manipulating doctors. I got the sense that she was trying to find relief, and she couldn't find it. She couldn't find it. And the doctors were, increasing meds, new meds. But whatever they did, she wasn't finding relief. Lady, thank you very much for the 10 jewels. Gold coin for Shadow. How about that? Thank you very much, sir. Shadow and I appreciate it. Soy-free hootie snacks for Shadow. He's very hormone and testosterone conscious after all.
Them that she was suicidal. She told them that she had suicidal ideation, and in December, to his and her ever dying regret, told Patrick in the presence of her mother that she was having psychosis thoughts of hurting the children. This is a woman.
Susan's got some gold coins. 10 jewels, gold coin from Susan. Thank you very much, Susan. Susan says she's enjoying the discussion here. On this channel, you'll get some very thorough and balanced discussion. That's what we do here. Anyone who knows me, as most people here do, they will vouch for that, even if they disagree with me at times. That's allowed. But I think most people would admit, yes, Jared and Shadow are fair, if anything. So we normally talk about the true crime or narcissism, and we interview people. Those are the things that are mostly the highlights of the channel. I do a lot of shorts as well.
That did not get the medication, did not get the medical treatment that she so deserved. This is a woman that was suffering from psychosis at the time that she went down to that basement. She had no motive. She loved her children. She intended to kill herself. She didn't fake that. Threw herself out the window. Goes to the hospital. You're going to see that when she's in the hospital, they said to her, "You want to, what do you call it, a DNR? Do not resuscitate," or whatever. Absolutely. Did not want any DNR. Didn't want to be resuscitated, wanted to die. To this day wants to die. That's.
To this day wants to die. And honestly, I mean, who can blame her? Because the best that she is looking at now is a long time in a mental institution while paralyzed.
What we're dealing with on this prosecution. So you're going to hear from witnesses. It's going to be emotional. And thank you for your service.
I think Kevin Reddington, he wins the opening statement there. I think his is better. His was better because I think the prosecution and Susan Buckingham, Shanan Buckingham. She overplayed her hand, though. She overplayed her hand.
Thank you,
All right, members of the jury, we're going to take the morning recess at this time. All right, I'm going to ask you to go out. Again, don't discuss the case. We'll be back here probably about 15, 20 minutes, and we'll begin with the Commonwealth's case. All right, so we'll be in recess at this time.
Court, all right. Jury, Ms. Lindsay.
Shanan. It's Shanan. I can't even say it right. So Shanan. Shanan Buckingham. Mavs. Mav says she's sore from the gym, but Shadow and I say that's the good kind of sore. 500 jewels, party blowers from Mavs. Thank you very much. But I think Kevin defeated Shanan in the opening statement there. There was no reason for the prosecution to jump to that made-up motive. That was unnecessary. I don't know why they did. Shouty Kathy, thank you so much for the super chat. Everybody needs to exercise your finger. Hit the button. Amen. Say it again, Shouty Kathy. We want to see some very strong pointer fingers and thumbs in the chat from hitting the like button every video. Only one rep required on the subscribe button, by the way, unless, of course, YouTube has unsubscribed you. Apparently that can happen sometimes. So let's see where Shanan Mercy cross-examines Patrick. There he is.
Well, members of the jury, thank you for your patience with us. We're now going to begin the presentation of evidence. Commonwealth, can you call your first witness, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. Commonwealth calls Patrick Clancy.
By the way, does anyone's audio like go only to one side now, or is that just mine?
Good morning, sir. Can you stop right here? Raise your right hand to the clerk.
Good morning. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony in the evidence you shall give forth in the jury, no matter now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant, the shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may have a seat. Now.
All right, good morning, sir. I'm going to ask you to speak into that microphone. You can be seated if you'd like, if you're more comfortable. Okay? All right, come up, please.
Your Honor. Good morning. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Patrick Clancy. It's Patrickclancy.
And what is your date of birth?
June 15th, 1988.
What city do you live in now?
New York.
And what do you do for a living?
I work in tech.
How long have you worked in tech?
14 years.
And were you previously married to a person named Lindsay Clancy?
Yes,
And you're divorced now, is that correct?
correct.
Do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you point to them and describe something they're wearing?
It's not necessary.
She's wearing a pink shirt.
Record will reflect the identification of the defendant.
Thank you. Where did you meet the defendant?
In South Boston.
And when was that?
I think it was May 2013.
And how did you meet her?
Through my cousin.
And would it be accurate to state that your cousin had been college roommates of the defendant?
Yes.
And at some point in time, did you start dating?
Yes.
And around what time was that?
July 2013.
Did you eventually move in together?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
September 2015.
And where did you live?
In Quincy.
How long did you live in Quincy?
1 year.
And where did you go after that?
We bought a house in Wayne.
Do you mind if we skip some of this backdrop?
An ideal way, and it caused just significant bruising and tearing.
So again, did the defendant with this second pregnancy have some pain and difficulty physically healing from the birth?
Yeah, much more so than Cora.
Okay. And was she on maternity leave at that time?
Yes.
How many weeks leave did she have at that time?
I don't recall, but I think it was more than the, traditional 12. I want to say it was 13 or 14, maybe more.
Page 13, if I may approach.
You may.
You don't have to keep telling me the pages, that's okay.
I could have you look at page 13 and just read to yourselves lines 6 through 10, and then just look up when you're finished. Thank you. Does that refresh your memory as to how much maternity leave the defendant had after Dawson's birth?
Yeah,
And what was it?
18.
18 weeks? Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And, after dealing with the physical pain of birth and starting to heal, how was her demeanor and experience during that maternity leave?
I think it was fine at first. It was always when she had to go back to work, that's when she struggled. So,
Okay. So that was a pattern that you saw after
Yeah.
the baby, maternity leave was good, and then she'd struggle going back to work?
she just had a really hard time being separated from them.
What was the plan for how many shifts she would work or how many hours she would work after Dawson was born?
I believe it was the same thing.
And in terms of Ms. Shanahan, the babysitter, you had mentioned before that she was there about 12 hours a week. Did that stay consistent after Dawson's birth, or was it more or less?
Probably consistent.
So the part we're going to be looking for here is when she starts talking to him about the medicine. That's the part that might be relevant.
After Dawson's birth, did the defendant ever tell you whether she was on any psychiatric medication after Dawson's birth?
No.
Did she seek treatment or tell you she sought treatment after Dawson's birth?
Yeah, she got a therapist for a short period of time, but it didn't last very long.
Did she tell you that at the time or later?
At the time.
Okay. And did she have any psychiatric hospitalizations or commitments at that time?
No.
What about after Cora's birth? Any psychiatric hospitalizations or treatments?
No.
Was there a time after Dawson's birth where she wanted to declutter your garage?
Maybe at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you assist her with that?
Yeah.
And how was that done?
We had a lot of stuff to throw away, and I think we sold some stuff on Facebook Marketplace. We just had a lot of stuff.
So did the two of you go through the items in the garage and organize it into what you would keep, what you would throw away, and what you would sell?
Yes.
Okay. And so it was very organized?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. And you finished the project, is that correct?
It was always ongoing.
Now, eventually you had your third child, correct?
Yeah.
And what was their name?
Callan.
And what was his date of birth?
May 26th, 2022.
Can you describe that delivery for us?
It was great. From what I could tell, it was relatively quick. It was during the day. We were both smiling after, and I don't think there was as much physical trauma.
Nothing compared to what happened with Cora or Dawson, is that correct?
Correct.
Did the defendant have maternity leave after Callan's birth?
Yeah.
And how long was that leave?
She never went back.
How long was it planned for initially?
I want to say 18 weeks.
And were you on paternity leave as well?
Yes.
And how long was your paternity leave?
12 weeks.
So with Callan being born on May 26, 2022, the two of you were home with the children that summer on leave, is that correct?
Yeah.
What was family life like during that time period, those summer months?
It was great. We had a lot of time off. I was able to spend a lot of time with...
Well, I mean, Mr. Clancy, he's on Lindsay's side here. Like, he wants the best outcome for her. And, you know, the prosecution's trying to trip him up to say something that's going to help them. Right? That's their goal. Patrick knows that.
I spent a lot of time with Cora and Dawson. So I would take them around, you know, the playgrounds and birthday parties and stuff like that.
And what would Lindsay be doing while you were with Cora and Dawson?
Sometimes she'd come with us with Callan, but oftentimes we did kind of like a divide and conquer. So she'd be home with Callan and I'd be out with the older kids.
And what types of family activities did you all do during those summer months?
We went on a couple vacations. We went to the beach. We went out on our boat and went to friends' houses.
During those months when you're going to the beach and out on the boat and visiting with friends, were there any signs of anxiety in the defendant during those months?
I would say starting in September, yes, but in the previous months, not so much.
When had she been scheduled to go back to work?
I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was October.
Okay. So again, it was that pattern of as it became closer in time to go back to work,
Yeah.
she started to struggle?
Yeah.
During the times when she would get anxious when it was time to go back to work and she would start being anxious. Did you ever have any difficulty understanding her when she spoke?
No.
And did she ever exhibit any behavior that made you concerned enough to call a doctor or want to commit her?
No.
When she was showing this anxiety, what were you seeing in her behavior?
Wait a minute. I want to rewind that 1 second here. That seemed like an important question.
Did you all do during those summer months?
We went on a couple vacations. We went to the beach. We went out on our boat and went to friends' houses.
During those months when you're going to the beach and out on the boat and visiting with friends, were there any signs of anxiety in the defendant during those months?
I would say starting in September, yes, but in the previous months, not so much.
When had she been scheduled to go back to work?
I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was October.
Okay. So again, it was that pattern of as it became closer in time to go back to work,
Yeah.
she started to struggle?
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're trying to make a correlation, like, oh, this is this anxiety about going back to work. And again, though, like, if that's what it was in the beginning, if you're Dr. Jennifer Tufts, does that warrant a prescription medication instantly? I don't always think so. I mean, we were reading the initial complaints. September, I believe, is when the medication started in 2022. So that's just something I'm thinking about.
During the times when she would get anxious, when it was time to go back to work and she would start being anxious, did you ever have any difficulty understanding her when she spoke?
No.
And did she ever exhibit any behavior that made you concerned
This line of questioning is to try to prove no psychosis leading up to it.
enough to call a doctor or want to commit her?
No.
When she was showing this anxiety, what were you seeing in her behavior?
Just a lot of stress. There were days where she had all 3 kids and, there's different nap schedules and different needs. So it was just really stressful.
Okay. And you're still working in the basement office at this point after Callan's born, correct?
I went back to work late August.
Okay. And when you work downstairs, how often would you come upstairs during the day?
All the time for lunch or just to say hi.
Were there times when Lindsay would ask you to hold the baby in the office while she was doing something?
So, yeah.
Okay. And were there times when you would watch one or more of the children while she took another to a doctor's appointment or to an errand or something like that?
Yeah, if it worked out with the schedule, yeah.
Okay. What was the plan in terms of how many shifts or hours she was going to work after Callan?
I believe the plan was 2 shifts per week, but there was a lot of flexibility. She could have done really anything.
Do you recall saying previously that you were going to start off with 1 shift and hopefully move to 2?
I could imagine, yeah.
Okay. And you said there were some options, correct? What were those options if that didn't work out?
Well, I always put money aside in basically our own maternity account, just so that if she needed more flexibility, we planned for that. So
if she needed more time off, more than what her work would provide for her, you were financially secure enough to afford that at that
Yes.
time? During this time, in the fall of 2022, were Cora and Dawson attending preschool?
Yes.
And where was that?
Learning Sprouts,
And where is Learning Sprouts located?
Duxbury.
How often were they attending Learning Sprouts?
Full days Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a half day on Thursday.
And what was a full day? What hours?
I think it was 9 to 4.
9 a.m. to 4 p.m.?
I think so, yeah.
And what was a half day?
Like 9 to 12:30. I think they might have had some days where they started early. I can't remember.
Okay. But basically all day, working hours all day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the mornings on Thursday. Is that right?
Right.
And who would do drop-offs for school?
We both would.
And what about pickups?
Both of us.
Together or take turns?
Usually we would take turns.
Now, at some point in time after Callan was born, did you hire a nanny?
Yes.
And when was that?
I think it was in August or September.
Of 2022?
Yeah.
And who was that nanny?
Lainey. I don't remember her last name.
Does Elaine Rossi sound familiar?
Yeah.
And do you recall how many days per week Elaine was going to work when you hired her?
I think it was 12 hours.
But it wouldn't be 12 hours altogether. It would be spread out over the week. Is that right?
Correct.
And who was she hired to take care of?
Everyone. But mainly it was going to be Callan.
Because Cora and Dawson would be at school?
For the most part, yeah.
And what was the plan for when Elaine would work? Was it that same type of after Lindsay worked shifts or something different?
Yeah, the goal was after Lindsay would work. I mean, she never went back to work, but I think we wanted to get her just like oriented with our house and the kids. So we had her start before, and then she was amazing. She was an amazing caregiver, but eventually we decided to let her go because Lindsay was home anyways.
So when you initially hired her in August or September, you said Lindsay was going back to work in October. So is that what you're talking about, that give her that month or so, give Elaine that month or so to get situated and acclimated to the house?
Yeah.
Okay. Have the kids get used to her. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Elaine, did she also do some cleaning, laundry, and food prep?
Yeah. Yeah, she was amazing.
Now, during this time frame, and again in the end of summer, fall period of 2022, what types of activities were Cora and Dawson doing?
Gymnastics. Are you talking about organized activities or just in general?
Organized.
I only remember gymnastics.
Did they both do the gymnastics?
Yeah.
And then were they also participating, maybe not in organized situations, but in swimming, soccer, skiing, things like that?
Yeah, they were doing swimming, and yeah, Cora and Dawson did skiing. Yeah, Cora started doing soccer. She didn't really like it, but did a little bit.
And who took them skiing?
I did.
And in terms of the swimming, where would you do that?
We did it at Goldfish in Rockland, I think. And then Lindsay took them somewhere in, I think, Plymouth. I don't remember where it was.
So you would each take them swimming at various times?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you also do some swimming at the Kingsbury Club?
Yes.
And what is the Kingsbury Club?
It's like a gym with a pool, and they had childcare, so sometimes they would hang out in the kids' room and we would go work out.
And is that in Duxbury?
It's on the Kingston-Duxbury line. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
Okay. And so you could drop the kids off at the daycare portion and go work out or swim or something like that?
Yeah, or we could go with them and go swimming.
Okay. Did Lindsay work out?
Yes.
She was very health conscious?
I think so.
And were you aware that she had been an athlete in both high school and college?
Yes.
Do you recall what she did?
Competitive cheerleading.
Now, when you were together, what type of exercise would she do or did she prefer?
She did a lot of running. She did the Peloton, and she did, there was like some program called Beachbody, I think.
Do you recall when she started Beachbody?
Maybe in the spring of 2022. I'm not sure.
So right before having Callan, would that be accurate?
Probably, yeah.
When you returned to work, and you said that was in August, correct?
Yes.
What was the defendant's demeanor when you returned to work?
Increased anxiety and definitely, stressed out.
Do you recall describing her as slightly stressed but in good spirits?
Yeah.
And when she was stressed out, when she was showing some anxiety, how did that manifest?
I don't really know how to describe it. I guess it's just any way you can tell that somebody's stressed out. And I don't know, she would say, I'm not looking forward to going back to work. I remember once she said it's just so unnatural to be separated from your newborn, stuff like that.
So she didn't want to go back to work? Is that what you're saying?
I think she did. It was just a really difficult transition for her.
And do you recall attending a wedding on September 17th, 2022?
Yeah.
And where was that wedding?
New Hampshire.
Was it just you and Lindsay that went, or did the whole family go?
We brought Callan.
And when you were at that wedding, do you recall having a conversation with Lindsay about medication?
Yes.
What did she say to you?
We were walking downtown and she said, I think I'm going to start taking Zoloft.
And did she tell you why she wanted to start taking Zoloft?
She said, I think it's really going to help with my anxiety and with going back to work.
And did she tell you how she was going to go about getting Zoloft?
Yeah, I asked her, how are you going to get Zoloft? It's a prescription. And she said, usually just ask the doctor and they'll give it to you.
And did she tell you that she was going to see a psychiatrist?
Yeah, I believe so.
And when she did that, did she tell you who she was going to see?
No.
Did you eventually learn the name of the person who she went to see?
Months later, yeah.
Okay. And who was that?
Jennifer Tufts.
Okay. And did Lindsay tell you when she started seeing Dr. Jennifer Tufts?
No.
Did you learn, or strike that, did Lindsay tell you when she received the medication and when she started it?
No. I should correct that. It's not exactly.
Well, let me just ask a question first.
Sure.
Did you have a conversation with Lindsay about the medication she was on?
Eventually, yeah, but I didn't know the start date.
Okay. And so when did this conversation take place, this eventual conversation?
Probably the end of October.
Okay. And at that point, what did Lindsay tell you about the medication and how she was taking it?
I don't remember exactly, but I learned that she was taking the Zoloft, and I don't remember really too much about it after that. She was just taking it, and we were seeing how it went.
And did you notice any changes in her physically during that time frame that she was on it and you weren't aware she was on it?
At the time, no, I don't think I did.
Okay. And did you notice any changes in her emotionally during that time when she was on it, but you weren't aware she was on it?
Yeah, she wasn't really improving. She just kind of seems to be gradually becoming more in like a depressed state.
Yeah, so the second she started taking medicines, she's not improving with this Zoloft. So again, like if you're taking something and you're not improving, the thing with an SSRI is they might say, well, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to start working, so you have to grin and bear it. And I mean, this is why I think counseling is a good approach, and I think a lot of times medicines should be more of a last resort than a first resort. But again, it depends on the severity of the situation. There can be severe things where, yeah, you probably need some kind of mood stabilizer. But even for, like, Lindsay, I would have said to her, like, dude, Shadow and I got you. We got some lithium orotate here, these other kinds of things you can take. I bet you that would improve you. But here's the thing about that, right? Imagine if she went to see a natural person like myself, a homeopathic, natural remedies person, and then the same thing happened. She killed her kids after seeing a natural remedies person. What would the narrative be? The narrative would be, she went to see a quack with no credentials, is a moron, and look, this is why supplements are bad and not FDA approved. You better believe that's what the narrative would be. But since she took prescriptions, that's the thumbs up, big pharma dollars way to go. So you're not going to hear that same level of pushback a lot of times. Now, people in the know, like people here in the chat, we know what's going on there. But my point is, I think there were other options besides jumping straight to that. They'll disagree with me, I'm sure. But I would say now, I truly believe many of the things that we need have already been provided to us on the earth, with rare exceptions. So rare exceptions would be, okay, a diabetic needs insulin. Okay, take your insulin. And there's other things like that too. But I think for a lot of stuff, the solutions are already provided for us in the form of plant medicine, of food, etc., whatever it may be.
And how was that manifesting? What were you noticing?
It was just small things. I was planning a trip with Cora to San Francisco, and she was nervous about us going. And I remember we went to a Halloween event, and just leading up to it, I remember it just kind of seemed like she didn't want to go for some reason.
Okay. Now, do you recall learning that she had actually obtained the prescription the day before she told you she was going to ask for the prescription?
I did later learn that, yeah.
Okay. So she's telling you at the wedding that she is going to ask to take this medication and going to see a psychiatrist to get on that medication, but she actually already had the prescription. Is that correct?
Correct. I don't think she started taking it yet, but she already had it.
Okay. And did Lindsay tell you how long she took the medication for?
She may have. I don't remember the exact time frame. I just remember she took it for a period of time, and then her sleep started to suffer, so she stopped taking it.
And did she tell you whether or not she spoke to her provider, her doctor, about the troubles she was having?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And did Lindsay tell you that she was advised to double the dose of the Zoloft?
She may have. I don't remember.
Page 31. You could look at lines 20 to 22, and then just look up when you're
Sure.
finished.
Okay, yeah, apparently she did.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yeah.
And so did Lindsay tell you that she was supposed to double the dose?
I guess she did, yeah.
Did you notice any changes in her sleep during that time when she was on the medication, but you weren't aware she was on it?
Eventually, yeah.
When was that?
I don't remember the exact dates, but she just, one night she said, do you mind? She started it by saying, I'm not mad or anything, but do you mind sleeping in the basement? And letting me just sleep in our room with Callan. And then you can take the monitors down in the basement, and if Cora and Dawson get up, you can get up with them. She said, I've just been having a lot of trouble sleeping, and I'm hoping that, like, if there's less in and out, then there'll be less disruption.
Okay. Had you noticed prior to her telling you this that she was up a lot or having trouble sleeping, like physically seeing her awake?
No, not that I recall.
And did you in fact start sleeping in the basement for a period of time?
I think I did it for like 2 nights, and then she actually went down in the basement.
Okay, so then you went back up to your bedroom to sleep, is that correct?
Yeah.
And how long did Lindsay sleep in the basement for after that?
Maybe a couple weeks.
And so during that time frame, was she telling you that she was still having trouble sleeping?
Yes.
But you weren't actually down there watching her sleep. You're getting this information from her, correct?
Correct.
Were you aware that out of the Zoloft prescription she was given, she only took 7 pills?
No.
Out of the Zoloft prescription, she only took 7 pills. Now, this is where they're going to say not taking as prescribed. But I would also ask, well, which month was it? I mean, how many times had the Zoloft prescription been refilled? Right? She started that, and I think it said October. Now, they're talking about what they found on the day of the killing in January. Well, what level script was that? How many times has she had it refilled? I don't know.
After you had the conversation with Lindsay where she said she was going to double the dose of Zoloft, did you notice any difference in her demeanor or behavior?
I would say yes. I don't know if I connected it with the doubling of her Zoloft, but over that period of time, she just kept getting worse and worse.
And what period of time was that? What month are we in?
Mid-October to the end of December.
Okay. So she got the prescription in September, started taking it in October, took 7 pills, but was having difficulty in December. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
From this medication?
Yep. Well, I don't know which medication it was from, but yeah.
Okay.
So they're saying she only refilled it, got it filled once?
At some point in time, did Lindsay switch providers?
Yes.
And why did she do that?
Because whatever she was doing with Jennifer Tufts, it wasn't working. She was only getting worse. And she thought that it would be better if she worked with, I guess, more of like a perinatal psychiatrist.
And did she get a referral or a recommendation of where to go?
I think so, yeah.
Do you know who gave her that recommendation?
It might have been my mother.
And your mother's a nurse at South Shore Hospital, correct?
Yeah.
Does she?
That's the thing. They might say this in a second, but knowing there's 7 left in the bottle that she had, that doesn't tell us anything. It only tells us something if she only got the prescription filled once. That's when it tells us something. But if she'd gotten it filled several times, the fact there's 7 missing from that bottle doesn't really say anything.
Also do labor and delivery work?
Yes.
Okay. And so do you know which provider or which office she recommended?
Yeah, her name is Julie Paul.
And was she at the South Shore Perinatal Clinic?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. And do you know when that was?
I don't know the dates on that.
Do you recall saying previously that it was towards the end of November?
Yeah, that sounds accurate, yeah.
Okay. And you said she initially saw someone named Julie Paul, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you know how long she saw Julie Paul at that facility?
I think it was only 4 or 5 days.
And were you aware that Julie Paul left that office?
Yes.
And do you know who Lindsay saw after Julie Paul?
Rebecca Gelata.
And was Rebecca Gelata a nurse practitioner?
Yes.
Were you aware that she also saw a licensed social worker therapist named Letitia Dukes while she was at the South Shore Perinatal Clinic?
I don't recall Letitia Dukes, but it's possible.
So Lindsay never told you that she had therapy sessions with a person named Letitia Dukes during that time frame?
I don't remember any therapy sessions now.
Okay. After switching to Julie Paul and then Rebecca Gelata, did Lindsay start coming home with different prescription bottles?
Yes.
Okay. And were some of these medications...
So here's the thing. There should be a record of all of these prescriptions and how many times were they refilled, etc. All of them. So between all the pharmacies and places she got them filled at, or if the hospitals filled them themselves, there should be record of this somewhere. So again, with that Zoloft thing, it tells us something if she only ever got one bottle of Zoloft. But somehow I don't think that's what it was. I think they had been refilled before. So she'd taken the entire bottle, and she was just on this, of this bottle, she had taken 7. So we don't really know what that tells us yet. We need more context.
that she came home with, were some of them during the time she was with Dr. Tufts?
I think some of them were, yeah.
And some of them were while she was with Julie Paul, is that correct?
Correct.
And then some while she was with nurse practitioner Gelata, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And would it be accurate to state that you provided the district attorney's office with a printout from CVS Pharmacy of all the prescriptions that were filled for Lindsay from September through January?
This could be good. Let's see what this says.
September 2022 through January of 2023.
Yes.
Any objection?
No, of course not.
I'd ask her to be a bit of
Sure, yeah. In members of the jury, one of the things I forgot to tell you is anything that's entered as an exhibit, you'll have with you in the deliberating room when you're deliberating. So you'll have a chance to go over that as well. So you'll have anything that's marked as an exhibit. Okay? Thank you.
Now, while she was taking these
Now, I did write this down. I did get this. I can give you all this. So, the Patriot Ledger, I was going to initially read something from the Patriot Ledger, and then very capitalistically, they put it behind a paywall. But this is what I wrote down. So, September 15th, 2022. Sertraline, 25 milligrams. October 21st, lorazepam, 0.5 milligrams. October 26th, hydroxyzine, 25 milligrams. Let's see what these are even. So, let's make sure we know what they are. Sertraline. I wish they would actually say the brand names. It's harder to know. Sertraline. So sertraline's the Zoloft. Okay. So she started September 15th, sertraline. So let's look how many times she refilled sertraline. So September 15th is the first one. So according to the Patriot Ledger here, of the sertraline, that looks to be the only time that was filled, September 15th. Now, there's other antidepressants in the meantime, so fluoxetine, for example, and trazodone's an SARI. Fluoxetine, Prozac. Fluoxetine's Prozac. So Prozac was filled. Let's see what hydroxyzine is. There's a prescription antihistamine. Okay. Onward.
Medications, the various pills. Were you always with her, watching and monitoring exactly what she took?
Now, trazodone is an SARI, not an SSRI.
Not always, no.
Sometimes you'd see it, sometimes you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Directing your attention to February 6th, 2023, did you go to the district attorney's office and or have your attorney go there and provide a bag of prescription medication that had belonged to Lindsay?
Yeah. I think the police took a bag of prescription medications that night, the night my kids passed away. Mm-hmm. And then there was a bag that I had in my truck that I was supposed to, nurse practitioner Charlotta said you can bring them to like a police station. They get rid of them for you. But I never got around to it.
And where had you stored those in your truck?
In the center console. It's like underneath the center console that opens.
You have one of those center consoles that open up, but then there's another larger
Correct.
compartment below it?
Yeah.
So was it your plan to bring these to a location where they could be properly disposed?
Yeah, I didn't want to just throw them in the trash, so.
And these were all medications that had been prescribed in the past to Lindsay, but she was no longer taking, correct?
Right.
Your Honor, I don't think I have any objection to any of their exhibits, so
Okay.
she doesn't have to keep showing it to me, that's
All right.
fine.
So I'll assume if you do have an objection, just
Sure.
rise, let me know. Okay, thank you.
So for the record, a bag here with 9 pill bottles as exhibit 2, please.
Thank you.
And so looking in exhibit 2, we have the Zoloft that was prescribed by Dr. Tufts and filled on September 15th, 2022. And I think I asked you earlier, you weren't aware that only 7 pills were taken out of this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then there's another prescription in here for Ativan that was.
So here's the thing to note with that. So that's one SSRI. Only 7 were taken since September 15th. Is that enough to trigger a psychosis? Probably not. Like the postpartum psychosis would probably have to already be there. Now, there's other SSRIs she took though, like the Prozac. There's a couple others. So maybe they did it, but let's see what they said with the rest of the dosages here and when they were prescribed. And Ambien could too, by the way. Ambien's pretty powerful.
Filled on October 26, 2022. Were you aware that only 6 pills were taken out of that bottle?
Can you say the date again?
October 26, 2022.
And how many did it start with?
Let's see. 30 pills.
Okay. I mean, I don't have those exact numbers on how many she took, but there were adjustments made on the dosage of the Ativan. So that'll.
By the way, any SSRI, not just Zoloft, can trigger psychosis in bipolar patients. That's why mood stabilizers and antipsychotics would be needed. So any SSRI, any antidepressant period, could trigger manias, rapid cycling, and maybe psychosis if someone has bipolar. Now, granted, postpartum psychosis is even separate than bipolar. The defense has said she has both postpartum psychosis and bipolar.
Lines with
But the question was, were you aware that only 6 pills were taken out of this prescription?
No, but I think the context
Which one was that? There's a benzo that only 6 were taken out of?
is important.
Okay. Were you aware? 30 pills.
Okay. I mean, I don't have those exact numbers on how many she took, but there were adjustments made on the dosage of the Ativan. So that aligns with
But the question was, were you aware that only 6 pills were taken out of this prescription?
No, but I think the context is important.
Okay. Were you aware that there was a prescription for buspirone or Buspar filled on October 26, 2022, in which only 2 pills were taken out of the 30 that were prescribed?
I found out about the Buspar later, and I didn't know about the number.
I don't know. I've seen more cases than that. I think a lot of people that have bipolar 2, they go on antidepressant, they can rapid cycle. I think it's happened to me, rapid cycling through those things. So I mean, it's why I know so much about it. I've been here.
Pills taken.
And then were you aware that there was a prescription for hydroxyzine, prescription filled on October 26, 2022 for 30 pills, and that
I wish they would just say the stupid names because these freaking drug names are annoying. I know them by their brand names.
only 3 pills were taken out of this bottle?
Which
Hydroxyzine?
Yeah, what is that?
I believe it's in some type of, similar to an antihistamine, like Benadryl or something like that.
Oh, okay. I don't really recall much about that drug.
Okay. And were you aware in this bag there was another prescription for Buspar that was filled on November 9th, 2022, 30 pills prescribed, and no pills were taken out of this bottle? Were you aware of that?
I wasn't keeping track of the number of pills taken out of each bottle,
Okay.
so.
And then just ask you about one more, the trazodone, prescribed on November 16th, 2022, by a doctor from South Shore Hospital, 30 pills. Were you aware that only 7.5 pills were taken out of this prescription?
No.
So there were a lot of pills prescribed, but not a lot of pills taken, correct?
Is that comprehensive of all the pills that were prescribed?
These are the pills that you brought into the police station. So out of these,
Out of those, yeah, it's possible that not a lot were taken.
do you recall what was the most amount of pills prescribed? I guess I could ask this better. What was the maximum number of medications she was on at any one time?
I want to say 3 or 4.
Very good question. So 3 or 4 at any given time to his knowledge, right? to his knowledge part might be key, because we don't know what she was doing that maybe he didn't know about. We've already established that he didn't know this. I don't think he knew this, like how many she was taking and not taking. So something to note.
Would it surprise you to know that she, at any given time, the most she was prescribed was 3, but most of the time it was 2 medications that she was prescribed at any given time?
It wouldn't be terribly surprising, no.
Now, on November 16th, 2022, did Lindsay visit South Shore Hospital?
So often only 2. So if you're the defense and you're hearing that, what only helps your psychosis case, if you want to say it's more medication induced, or contributing like to making the psychosis worse, medication, it would have to be the SSRIs or the other antidepressants, right? That's what would contribute to it. Maybe even Ambien, especially if abused. Now, that's one thing I don't know if they go over. It's like, was she ever abusing these benzos? Did she ever abuse Ambien, especially considering she said she had bad insomnia? Was she? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. And why did she go to the South Shore Hospital that day?
I believe that day it was because she basically went 48 hours without sleeping.
And was she having heart palpitations?
I think so, yeah.
Were you aware that she had taken a weed gummy that day?
I don't recall.
And are you aware that she didn't tell medical staff at the hospital when describing her symptoms and her medication that she left out that she had used marijuana?
I
I
wasn't.
mean, that could contribute, right? That's a big, especially if someone has mental health psychosis going on, postpartum psychosis. Even people that have generalized anxiety. I mean, a weed gummy can go either way. Like some people, it can trigger some psychosis-like symptoms. Some people might have a panic attack. For other people, weed really helps them. It really just depends, right? It calms some people down, but it can trigger panic attacks or psychosis-like symptoms. So honestly, considering her situation, I don't know. I would say it's a roll of the dice. I don't know if she was a professional, she knew what she was doing with weed or not. I don't know. Or did she take it out of desperation? I don't know.
With her, so I don't know what she talked about at the hospital.
So she drove herself to the hospital?
She did.
And she drove herself home from the hospital then? Is that correct? Now, during this time frame between September and November of 2022, are you still participating in activities as a family?
Between November and December?
Between September and November?
Yeah.
Okay. And what types of things were you doing?
We celebrated Halloween. I don't really remember what else, but I think we were doing things regularly.
Do you recall going to an event with food trucks?
Yeah.
And do you recall going to an event in November where there were trains to ride with the kids?
Yeah.
So we have the photo from the food truck event, this is Exhibit 3. And the photo from the train event is Exhibit 4. 3 and 4 somewhere. Can they publish?
You may.
So Exhibit 3 is this Lindsay, Cora, and Callan at that event.
Yeah.
And Exhibit 4, this Lindsay with all 3 kids at that event in November.
Yeah.
Did you have plans for Thanksgiving that year?
Yeah.
What were your plans?
I believe the order was we went to Wallingford where her parents lived in the week before, and then the week after we went to my sister's house,
And where did your sister live? What town?
South Hamilton.
And that was a week after Thanksgiving, is that right, correct?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it was.
And is this a photo from Thanksgiving at your sister's house?
Yes.
I could have this photo marked as Exhibit 5, I believe.
All right, that may be marked.
5. Showing you what's been marked. Exhibit 5. Is this Lindsay here on the left?
Yes.
And are those your sisters in the photo with her?
That's one of my sisters and my sister-in-law.
Okay. And have they coordinated outfits for the day? The shirts?
Yeah, I think my sister did.
What was Lindsay's demeanor that day?
She was in rough shape.
Rough shape?
Yeah.
How so?
She wasn't talking much. She had low energy. She was really depressed. I just remember when she showed up, my sister-in-law gave her a big hug.
And she was able to get through dinner, eat dinner with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. She interacted with people, is that correct?
I would say very little, but to some degree, sure.
And she took care of the kids with you while she was there?
We both took care of the kids together.
You mentioned earlier that your wedding anniversary is in December, is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you recall going out for your anniversary on December 3rd, 2022, going into Boston?
No, we didn't go out.
You don't recall arranging for a massage for Lindsay and then going to the Omni Parker house and going out to dinner that night?
No, December 3rd, 2022, we stayed home.
You stayed home, okay. Showing you a photo of you and Lindsay. Do you recognize this photo?
Yeah.
And when was that taken?
I'm not really sure.
It wasn't taken on December 3rd when you were out celebrating your anniversary?
In 2022?
Yes.
No. No, we wanted to go out.
The prosecution flubbed it. Unforced error.
But we canceled because she wasn't feeling well. So we stayed home. We got takeout.
Okay. Did you also, on November 26th, 2022, go out as a family to get a Christmas tree?
Yes. Well, probably. I don't know. But yeah, around that time, yes.
Okay. Showing you two photos. Are these from that day when you got the Christmas tree?
Yeah, that looks accurate.
You could have the first photo of all 5. And then the second one is Exhibit 7. Exhibit 7. Showing you Exhibit 6. This is all of you at the tree farm.
Yeah.
And Exhibit 7, those are the kids.
Yes.
Around December 6th, 2022, did Lindsay tell you she was starting a new medication?
I don't remember specifically.
Is it that you don't remember the date or you don't remember her starting a new medication?
I'm not sure.
Do you remember Lindsay telling you at some point she was starting the medication Seroquel?
Yes.
Do you remember around what time frame that was?
I thought it was before December 6th.
Okay.
Here's the other question, folks. Remove all of the medicines from the equation. You can still have postpartum psychosis without all of these medications at play at all. Right? You can have postpartum psychosis without any prescription drugs on top. I think that's important to know too. So, and the defense could fall back on that as well, where like, okay, maybe she was only taking 2 at the same time, or at most 3 or 4, but that doesn't eliminate the postpartum psychosis. Like, that doesn't eliminate that as the explanation for why she did what she did. But what do you think?
And do you recall how she was physically after starting the Seroquel?
Awful.
How so?
That was really where her big spiral started.
So Seroquel is an antipsychotic. It is interesting that her big spiral started when she was on an antipsychotic. To be honest with you, I've never really seen that with Seroquel. Seroquel generally, people take it at nighttime. They often will gain weight when they take it. I've never seen someone spiral. But then again, it's been a little bit since I've been around the prescription drug world and the rehab world. But when I worked at a drug and alcohol rehab for teens, we would joke the place was sponsored by Seroquel. And the people loved it because the kids would actually like calm down and fall asleep. Because a lot of them were rambunctious. But that's an example also of, medication aiding. And is it always necessary? That depends, right? But I don't know. Ed, have you seen a lot of people get much worse from Seroquel? I have not.
She started to lose a lot of weight, and she became very depressed, and she was having a really hard time.
And did she describe to you some thoughts or feelings that she was having at that time?
Yeah, she started to say she was suicidal.
And was that in December of 2022?
I think so, yeah.
And when she told you she was suicidal, did you ask her if she had a plan on how to kill herself?
Yes.
And what was her response?
She said no.
And did she ever mention a specific way or plan she had to kill herself to you?
No.
And at some point in time, did she tell you that this was the first time she had had suicidal thoughts?
I don't know if she mentioned it was the first time or not. I just remember her saying she had them.
Had you ever heard her say that to you before, that she was having suicidal thoughts?
No.
Did you own at that time a Surface Pro, a type of tablet that works as a laptop?
Yeah.
And who had access to that laptop?
We both did.
Okay. You and Lindsay?
Yeah.
And going back to August 22nd, 2022, did you click on a link on that Surface Pro that was titled Methods of Suicide?
Not that I recall.
And August 22nd, 2022, that was before Lindsay had been on any medications, as far as you know, correct?
Correct.
So I think someone asked me, do I think this parallels Susan Smith? I say not as much Susan Smith, because Susan Smith, she had a very clear motive. She wanted to be with her boyfriend, but the boyfriend didn't want to be with her because she had kids. So she thought, well, one way to handle that problem is to, drive them into the lake while they're in the back seat. Now I don't have any kids. Don't you love me, hun? I have no kids now. So that was very different. This more parallels the Andrea Yates case. Andrea Yates drowned 5 of her children in the bathtub. Now, a difference is she was also diagnosed with schizophrenia, Andrea Yates. But I think in terms of auditory hallucinations, Andrea Yates was told something. I forget what she had said she was told. But in that case, it parallels this, much more so than the Susan Smith case does. But very good question, though, Susan.
Going back to December, she's told you that she's having these thoughts. What's your reaction when she tells you that she's having these suicidal thoughts?
I just wanted to support her. I asked those questions back to her, and her mother was coming up pretty regularly anyways, so we let them know, and we just try to be supportive.
Did she also tell you at that time, at the beginning of December, that she was having some other intrusive thoughts?
Yeah.
Is that how she described them or how you described them, intrusive thoughts?
I would say both.
Okay. And when she told you that she was having intrusive thoughts, did you ask her what they were?
Yeah.
And what was her response?
She described thoughts of hurting the kids or them having some sort of ailment. So like she was very worried that Cora had, whenever she had a stomach ache, she became overly worried that she was, like had like a liver problem or something much more dramatic than it was.
Okay. But going back to that first part, she said she had thoughts of harming the kids. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And did she tell you whether or not she had specific thoughts of how she would harm the kids?
No.
And she didn't describe that as hearing this external voice telling her to harm the kids, correct?
Correct.
She told you she was having intrusive thoughts herself of harming the children, correct?
Correct.
And did you ask her how she was going to harm the kids?
I didn't ask it in that way. It was the same thing. I said, do you have a plan, and is it disturbing to you? And she said no, and then she said yes. And
let me go back for a minute there. You said, do you have a plan? And she said no. What was the second question? Second part of the question?
I said, do you find it disturbing? Okay. And she said yes. And she described it as really the way she was describing it as something that might happen to the kids.
So it was more something might happen than she might do something. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And did she tell you how long she had those thoughts for?
She didn't give a duration.
And how many times did she tell you this, that she had thoughts of harming the kids?
A couple times.
And was that a couple times over the course of a night or two in December?
Yeah.
Now I wonder how Patrick would explore that with her and say, okay, well, I mean, what do you, and it's probably very uncomfortable to talk about if you're Patrick in that situation. You kind of wish you didn't hear it, right? Like, did I really just hear that? You hope not. And you'd probably be tempted to do the ostrich routine and just say, nah, that's a one-off. But he just said that it happened multiple times. And as uncomfortable as it would be, you'd want her to kind of open up about it. And, was that part of the harming the kids thing? Doing something like strangling them, like she did. I don't know. And I think Patrick said he told the doctors this. So if not Patrick, the doctors definitely should have followed through and asked those tough questions. Doesn't sound like they did, though. It sounds like they only asked those tough questions in terms of her ending her own life. And then since she didn't have a plan, they said, sorry, no inpatient for you.
And as a result of her telling you this, that she had thoughts of harming the kids, what did you do?
Her parents came up, and I think I asked her at some point, do you feel like you need to be kept away from them? And she said no. And then, it was very confusing because a minute later she was making them lunch or playing with them or, getting them ready for bed or whatever it was.
So it was confusing in that she wasn't physically harming them at the time, but had these thoughts. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I never saw Lindsay harm the kids.
And did you also, as a result of these statements, suggest an appointment with nurse practitioner Gelada?
It wasn't as a result of these statements. That appointment was set up because we were at her parents' house in Wallingford for Thanksgiving, and she just described how she was feeling on the medication, and she felt that she was addicted to them.
Was that the benzodiazepines that she thought she was addicted to?
Primarily, and then she was taking Seroquel at the same time, and she might have been taking Trazodone or Remeron, I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you recall testifying previously that I called her parents to come up to stay with us, and I told her that I asked her who her doctor was because I was very concerned at this point. She was prescribed 10 different medications in just over 2 months, so it didn't make sense to me. And then you said, so after her parents came up, she said, I have a remote meeting with Rebecca Gelada, and you said, no, it has to be in person.
Yeah, I felt like it had to be in person because I just felt like there was a disconnect. I felt like we could figure it out, whatever was going on. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like most of her telehealth appointments were pretty quick, and there just wasn't like a lot of attention.
Were you present for these telehealth visits?
Only a few of them,
okay.
And they were after that meeting with Gelada.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she said she was addicted to benzos awakened. I think she had said she was worried she was getting dependent on them. But in terms of what she was told, she had said voices had told her to send her children to God. That's what she had said.
Okay. And that appointment in person with Gelada was December 6, 2022. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
So the thought of harming the kids was after Thanksgiving, but before December 6th. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
Were you concerned for the kids' safety at that time?
No, I wasn't.
And why not?
Because she wasn't showing any intention of harming the kids.
And she told you she didn't have a plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, directing your attention to December 15th, 2022.
Did she say that she was addicted to benzos? I only heard she thought she was dependent. But did she just say she was addicted to them?
Did Lindsay go to Mass General Hospital to the emergency department that day?
Yeah.
Okay. And why was that?
I remember the reasoning being she told her dad that she wanted to commit suicide, and then she said to me,
So somebody needs to tell me, what did she say about the benzos? Did anyone else hear her say that? I'd only heard her say things about being concerned she was dependent. But did I just miss it?
I told my dad I want to die, and it didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
And
dependent is what I thought, B.
as a result of those statements, you brought her, or did she bring herself to Mass General?
I think I brought her that time.
And at Mass General, she saw medical staff, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And did they recommend to her some type of...
And the reason why addicted and dependent is different to me, dependent means like you're relying on them and like you need them to fall asleep. Addicted more means you are abusing them and not taking them as prescribed. To me, they're two different things.
Admission to McLean Hospital?
I remember there was one doctor who was in favor of that, and there were two others who were more in favor of a day program.
Okay. And did they give you information about a specific day program?
Yeah, it was women and infants in Providence.
And at that time when Lindsay was saying
And
that,
here's the thing, though. Like, you need to understand, what is their definition of addicted? What's the definition of addicted versus dependent? You have to know if you're working with the same language.
she was suicidal, was she asked if she had a plan,
By the doctors.
or by you?
I was always checking in with her, and she never told me that she had a plan. I'm not sure what the doctors asked her.
And after being at Mass General on December 15th, did she go to Women and Infants Hospital in Rhode Island to attempt to get into their postpartum program?
She was already in. She went in as scheduled.
Okay. And, but she didn't remain in, correct? She was just there for a day?
Correct.
Okay. And did she go by herself? Did you go with her?
I dropped her off, and then I took Dawson skiing.
Okay. And at some point in time, did Lindsay reach out to you to say she wasn't staying at the program and to come pick her up?
She actually said that the providers at that program suggested to her that she call me and have her come get picked up, and then that I should go in and meet with the providers.
Okay. And then after you picked her up, she was no longer in the program at that point, correct? At Rhode Island Women and Children's, right?
Well, we discussed it with the doctors, and their recommendation was that the program wasn't right for her.
Right. And so you guys returned home, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And during this time frame in December, Lindsay's still working out at the Kingsbury Club, correct?
That might be true.
And the reason why that's a big thing is, like, an addiction to benzos. Benzos are a drug of abuse. Drugs of abuse are not something you can claim insanity from. Like, you're never going to see that. You're not going to see not guilty by reason of insanity from a drug of abuse. Like crystal meth, crack, coke, Adderall. You're not going to see it. Now, where it does come into play is, like I said, if you have a postpartum psychosis diagnosis period before, then the meds aren't as much of a thing. But that does not, if she says she's addicted to benzos, that does not help her case at all, actually, in my opinion.
I don't recall exactly, but yeah.
Do you recall her going to the Kingsbury Club on December 6th, 13th, 16th, 17th, or 18th?
I mean, I believe that can be true. Yeah, I don't recall those exact dates, but yeah.
At this
So Mrs. Amanda says that he said that she said she was addicted to all of them. All of what? All of the benzos? All of the medications? It seems a little bit of a vague answer there. But I will say, an addiction to benzos, if it is benzos, and granted, she did have 3 benzos in her system at the time of the killing, that's not going to help. That won't help.
time when
What would help her is if it was an SSRI or an antidepressant, and she was also bipolar and it made it worse. That would help. But if that's not what it was, then I don't know about that.
she's saying that she's feeling suicidal, she's telling you she doesn't have a plan, correct?
Mm-hmm.
She's no longer saying she has any thoughts of harming the children, correct?
Correct.
She's still bringing the children to doctor's appointments during that time, right?
Yeah.
Do you recall her bringing Callan and Dawson to the doctors on December 2nd when they weren't feeling well?
And I have a list of all the medicines and when they were prescribed. Now, the problem is we don't know what she was actually taking. I can read you the list between September and January of every medicine that was prescribed. But that's still only some of the picture. because we don't know what she was actually med compliant with. And now that it's all out of her system from the Times, it's really going to be just their word that would say otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And then she was able to call the doctor's office on December 27th and make an appointment for Callan and Cora when they weren't feeling well. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And take them to the doctor, I believe with you, correct?
Maybe, I don't know.
And then on December 30th, she was able to take Callan to the doctor that day as well and interact with the staff. Is that correct?
Probably.
Then you returned to Mass General Hospital, the emergency department, on December 31st. Is that correct?
Yes.
And why did you go back on the 31st?
Because she was still talking about thoughts of suicide, and I was exhausted. I said, I think.
Here's the other part: suicide plus benzos, or suicide idealization plus benzos. Terrible combination, if you ask me, because that might make you fearless enough to do it, right? That's what benzos do. It's anti-anxiety, GABA A agonist. So you're someone that's experiencing depression. Benzos are also a downer, by the way. So you're on a downer, depressed. That's a dangerous thing, I would say. Don't you think, Anne?
It's time to go to McLean. And we didn't have a diagnosis. So we just didn't really know what was wrong. And I think for me, I was hoping that McLean could really evaluate her and try to figure out the best path forward.
Okay, so the path to getting to McLean was to go to the emergency department at Mass General and be referred to McLean. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you aware that night while at the hospital, Lindsay was taking selfies?
No.
To submit these two photos as the exhibit.
Right, that may be admitted, or they may be admitted.
Can you exhibit me taking a selfie at the hospital, is that correct?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And then the second page is just her legs in the doorway, is that correct?
Yep.
As a result of going to Mass General and telling them about her suicidal thoughts, was she transferred to McLean Hospital?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you stay with her throughout that transfer process, or were you able to?
I was not able to. For some reason, they transfer. I don't know if they do this with all patients, but she was transferred at 3 a.m.
Okay. And so she reached McLean in the early morning hours of January 1st then of 2023, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you visit her at McLean Hospital?
Yeah.
How often did you see her there?
I think I was able to go twice, or maybe 3 times.
Okay. And do you remember, what visiting hours were or what hours you visited?
I don't remember exactly, but it was, something like 2 to 6. And I think there were morning hours, but you couldn't just go anytime.
You couldn't or could?
You could not.
Okay. And so you, out of the few days that she was there, 5 days she was there, you visited 2 or 3 times, is that correct?
Yeah.
And while you were there with her, did Lindsay talk to you about the treatment that she was receiving at McLean Hospital?
She told me about her experience. It didn't really seem like she was getting any treatment.
Okay. Did she tell you that she wasn't really getting any treatment or wasn't getting as much care or treatment as she wanted?
Well, I think by the third day, I said, what have the doctors said? And she said, I haven't met with the doctor. The challenge was she arrived on a Saturday, and then I think Monday was an observed holiday, so she didn't see a doctor until Tuesday. So until then, she was coloring and playing with clay and going for walks.
Were you aware that she was seen by a resident, a doctor, the first 2 days she was there, and then an attending on the third day that she was there?
No.
Were you aware that she was seen by a licensed social worker, group therapist, and other mental health workers every day while she was there?
Yeah, I didn't get any updates.
Were you aware that she was offered one-on-one therapy by unit staff every day that she was there?
No.
Did you know?
As I'm hearing more of this be, I think it's also essential. I hope she was being honest about the medicine stuff, and being truthful about what she's taking, not taking, etc. Did they know? Did they know she was kind of picking and choosing? As long as they know that, there's no problem with it. But if the doctors didn't know, now she's kind of putting them in a bad spot.
That she participated in group therapy on January 1st for 45 minutes, a session about illness and symptom management.
I was aware of some group activities. I didn't know the details of it.
And were you aware that she participated in 2 group therapy sessions, one for 45 minutes and one for 50 minutes, one on self-compassion and one on illness and symptom management on January 3rd?
I wasn't aware of the subject of any of the meetings now.
Were you aware that she declined further group therapy and treatment in the afternoon of January 3rd?
No.
Were you aware that on January 4th, she participated in a group for 40 minutes called medication management?
No.
Were you aware that she participated in a group on January 5th on expressive therapy for 45 minutes?
No.
And were you aware that she declined further treatment 2 times on January 5th, one to attend group therapy and one to attend a session on cognitive behavioral processes?
No.
Were you aware that Lindsay asked the doctors to be discharged on the 6th, Friday the 6th, because she wanted to go to Cora's birthday party on the 7th?
Not that I recall.
Were you aware, or did Lindsay tell you that she then asked the doctors to discharge her on January 5th because she wanted to go home and get ready for the party?
I wasn't aware of Lindsay asking the doctors to be discharged.
Okay. Were there any insurance issues in terms of insurance refusing to pay for her stay at McLean Hospital?
We didn't really get to that point.
You weren't advised by the social worker or any staff there that there were any issues with your insurance, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, but I wouldn't have cared either.
Would you have just paid for it if needed?
I would have paid anything, yeah.
Ms. Sprague, is this a good time to break?
Yes.
All right, so members of the jury, we're going to break for the afternoon recess, and we'll see you back here about 2 o'clock, okay?
Court, all rise. We're close your notebooks, place them on your chairs. Follow me.
All right. Counsel, anything we need to address before the break?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so we'll see everybody about 2 o'clock. Thank you.
All right. That's a good place to stop for now. We are at 4 hours of a 6-hour and 13-minute video. There'll be more tomorrow. I can tell you what happened after this. The prosecution was grilling Patrick there. and making him, showing pictures of his kids, trying to make him emotional. I guess their point in doing that was to make you like humanize the kids, make it seem more real. But I think that was already done. I think that was already accomplished. So I don't think that was necessary. I think it's another kind of misstep by the prosecution. I think the prosecution's missteps are trying to frame this as a need for control and doctor shopping. I don't necessarily buy that. And then the grilling of Patrick, that's coming up. I don't necessarily think that was a good idea either. It's going to make the jury feel bad for him. Now, granted, does the jury feeling bad for Patrick, does that equate to helping Lindsay? I tend to think so. Because I think it also is making them not like the prosecution. And that's ultimately what her problem will be. Shanan Buckingham is, if the jury doesn't like her, then it's going to be tough to get your conviction, is what I would say. Yeah, B, that's where they left it off, right? And I think B agrees with me that the prosecution was going too hard there. We'll see, right? Like the medicine part, it kind of makes me think also, it's a little bit misleading to say the 12 to 13 medications. It's important to know most of the time there was only 2 at once, sometimes 3 to 4, provided she was being truthful about it. And that's a big provided, is what I would say. Now, they claim that Lindsay had a need for control and was doctor shopping, which I don't necessarily buy that. I think, and they did say that she had some postpartum depression with the second kid. They did say that. Oh, I'm sure, B. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. But like I said, this is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an interesting one. I think the case is winnable for the prosecution, I think. But I also think they can blunder it. And I think they're kind of on their way to blundering it as we speak. So we'll see. We'll see. I think also this Kevin Reddington, I think is just a better lawyer as well. So that helps Lindsay. But we shall see. Sure, that makes sense, Miss Amanda. I mean, he's humanizing the whole thing. As of now, he just seems more likable, I think, than the prosecution. Now, granted, it's very rare where that's, I shouldn't say very rare, but there's a lot of times where the prosecution isn't going to seem likable. But a lot of it depends on the severity of the case, right? If there's a case where there's a clear-cut bad guy, then the prosecution is going to seem like the good guy because they're trying to get justice. In this case, it's not so black and white. So the prosecution has to understand that and say, now, this is not just like a clear-cut good guy, bad guy. A lot of this also is convincing them that she would even be the bad guy. And how does the prosecution do that? They have to be careful with how they do that because you go too hard, now it's backfired in your face. You're not convincing them she's the bad guy. You're convincing them to not like you and your arguments is what you're doing. So just things to think about. It certainly helps if she's likable, B. It certainly helps. If they see her grilling Patrick, that can absolutely blow up in her face. All right. And thank you very much for the gifting of the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect membership. Whoever gets this from the YouTube Lords of Random, you can be in my members-only live stream which is on Thursdays, which are our Q&A and a chillin', which are our grand old time. So thank you very much, Anne. Hopefully someone we know gets it. But the YouTube Lords of Random, they're the ones that decide. Up, and she gave another one. So dose. You see that, Shadow? Dose. Wizard of Radical Self-Respect memberships. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Anne. And thank you for your prescription drug knowledge here today, too. We appreciate that as well. I have noticed that as well, Song Bits, but not always. Sometimes, right? Nicole Marie. Do I know them? Maybe. You got it, Ann. And Melody? Melody sounds familiar. Yes, have a great night, Autumn. I do think, and maybe B, let me know if she agrees, I do think the prosecution has to be careful that they don't go too hard on Patrick. It's one thing going hard on others, but on Patrick, is he the person to be going hard on? Going hard on. Ha! Inappropriate. But I don't know. I don't think so. That's right, B. We're back around. So B, Alicia, Ann, Songbits, Laura, Miss Kim. Thank you for modding Songbits and Miss Kim and Laura. And Awakened and Dana and Miss Amanda and Autumn. And Janine and Susan. Congratulations to the people that got the memberships, by the way. Melody and Nicole Marie. Mare, good to see you again, Mare. Tim, have a great night, Tim. Tim's the only dude I've seen in here today. Unless Awaken's the dude and I don't know it. X, didn't see you here, X. Welcome. All right, D. Have a great night, D. All right, folks. Time to shut this bad boy down. But I'll be seeing you all again soon.